To the Etihad was confirmed. Burnley say it's a record figure for a British goalkeeper, claiming it's £31 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. Old Trafford spent 2 years at Turf Moor, having signed from City for £19 million. Well, another English goalkeeper is also on the move. talkSPORT understands Aaron Ramsdale has agreed to join Newcastle. The Magpies will pay Southampton an initial £4 million loan fee, and there's an option to buy next summer. Well, despite Ramsdale getting relegated from the Premier League 3 times before turning 27, Alex Crook and Alan Brazil both reckon it's a smart acquisition.
The reaction from Newcastle fans is mixed, I think, on Aaron Ramsdale. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a brilliant character. I think once he gets in that team, he will build up a bond with the Newcastle fans, and they will grow to love him.
I'm with you.
I think this could be a really good signing.
Do you know who loves him? Ray Parlour loves him. He's a great guy and a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
I'm with you.
At Man United, they've honed in on Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins as their 2 targets up front. Ben Jacobs has told talkSPORT why the Villa man is being considered by the top brass at Old Trafford.
Is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now. Again, the fee there is £60 million or €70 million if they just met the asking price today. But some Manchester United sources feel that if Villa find a replacement, their not for sale stance or their high price may drop.
Well, talkSPORT also understands another forward, Daniel Ndoye, has now completed his move from Bologna to Nottingham Forest. And if you thought the test series between England and India was already a bit aggy, it's just gone to another level. This time the row was between India's head coach Gautam Gambhir and the Oval's head groundsman Lee Fortis. This after Fortis asked the India squad to move away from the main square while practising. Gambhir's reply was, "You're just a groundsman, don't tell us what to do." Oh, you're odd. There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Good morning, you're listening to Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill here on talkSPORT. So Aaron Ramsdale is joining Newcastle on loan. Is this what the fans of the Geordies had in mind when they qualified for Champions League? Surely they were expecting the club to maybe make bigger signings. Is he better or an improvement on Nick Pope? Those are the questions. And what's the latest on Alexander Isak? Newcastle fans, you are going to want to listen to this conversation. Craig Hope of the Daily Mail, who has been breaking the Alexander Isak saga day by day, will be joining us. Meanwhile, Brentford and Mbeumo says he chose to join Manchester United because of the project, not the money, the project. Oliver Glasner criticises the club having just 17 players. That's your old club, Simon. Need more than 17 if they're going to play European football. And we're going to speak to former England spinner Ashley Giles, head of the 5th test between England and India. This is Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Hello, Martin. Great to join us again. Nice for you to join us.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
No, when I said goodbye on Monday, I thought that was it. I didn't expect to see you again.
We had a good time.
It was good, wasn't it?
Did we have that good a time that we getting back on Wednesday?
Yeah, because I felt that me and you had a good time together on Tuesday.
Well, I didn't, you see. Because I listened to some of that and I thought, you definitely need someone else. So I called into it.
We need help. We need help.
You need help big time. I know. Honestly, after 11 o'clock, even I thought I've had enough of this.
England fans turned out in their numbers yesterday. Buckingham Palace was the final destination for the parade. We're hearing around 65,000 Turner. Burner Boy was on stage. Do you both know who Burner Boy is by any chance?
Burner Boy.
Do you know who Burner Boy is?
No, I knew who Heather Small was, and you didn't know who she was yesterday.
Yeah. Was that the rapper?
Yeah, singer, rapper.
Yeah.
Did you know who that was?
No, I didn't.
No, okay. He was on stage with Serena Wiegmann.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. She was singing along. Everyone was singing along.
Did he add value?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of people walking past was like, oh my God, Burner Boy's there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so he was responsible for the crowd being there, was he? Don't go down that route. The crowd were there celebrating women's football.
Is he big? Is he?
He's massive. Yeah, he's massive. He's massive.
Right?
Yeah, massive artist. Yeah, he really is.
So I expect to hear you listening to him.
Yeah.
Telling us about his tracks.
Yeah. Indeed. But congratulations, Serena Wiegmann. You've done international football as well. Is it better than club football? But did you prefer it at times to club football?
Well, the answer is probably no, because you're involved at club level. You're involved every single day, and this is the problem with it. It's great if you get some results, and not so good if you don't get the results, because the time between matches is by comparison or contrast.
For you played for Northern Ireland. You played with George Best. You played in the Northern Ireland side that had some great players in it, but wouldn't have won very much. You managed Republic of Ireland, which was a nation that's not going to win many things besides perhaps qualify. Which was a preferable route for you? Was it preferable to be an international footballer or an international manager?
Good question.
International footballer, and I'm not even sure that I could differentiate between the two of them. I actually love playing for Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I was captain of the side. We got to 1982 World Cup. We actually were in the quarterfinals at that particular stage because there were 24 teams. And when we reached the quarter final, it was like a round robin. We were in with France and we were in with Austria. But actually, if we could beat France, we would be in the semi-finals of the World Cup.
Incredible.
Absolutely for Northern Ireland.
Billy Bingham.
That was terrific. Billy Bingham was excellent for us. Really, Billy. We had, like everything else, we were very strong. We were durable. We weren't great at chasing games like anything else because we didn't maybe have enormous goal power or the number of chances that we created at international level, particularly against big sides. But what we could do is we could hold on to a lead. And the point I'm getting to is this. We had to beat France to get to the semi-finals because we had drawn against Austria and France had beaten Austria. So we had to beat France and we'd be in the semi-finals. And this was played in really hot conditions.
Where were you? Were you in Bilbao?
No, we were stationed in Valencia, but actually by this stage then we had to play in Madrid. So we played in Athletic Madrid's old stadium. And
in the heat of summer.
Yeah, in the heat, absolutely. And it was the hottest summer for 40 odd years, that particular summer in
was it?
Yeah. And we're playing at 4 o'clock in the day. And
so that was the year of the Falklands War, wasn't it, as well?
That's exactly right. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Well done, you.
Have you had a coffee already this morning?
I even know who the Spanish goalkeeper was, Luis Arconada. I remember.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. So the game, we're half an hour into the match against France, who had all those fantastic players, like
Platini,
Gires, little Gires.
The kid that got flattened by the German goalkeeper.
Absolutely, yeah. And so anyway, there's a big centre half called Trésor, very, very, very good player. And I played a 1-2 with Jerry Armstrong. It was half an hour into the game. And I get it back. No, John, but seriously, there's a moment to this, Okay, if it's worth waiting for, I waited for your conversation. I waited for your conversation after 10 o'clock yesterday, so you might as well listen to this. And I play the 1-2 with Jerry, and I get in, and I score, hit a left foot, and we take the lead 1-0. And I'm halfway around Madrid celebrating when the referee is called offside. I'm 2 yards onside. 2 yards onside.
He holds on to these things.
We need video footage. Can one of our producers find video footage of this?
You can find it. Absolutely, you can. And the quicker you do, the better for me. And within, so it's flagged for offside. We needed VAR at that particular time. It was 1982, and within 3 minutes, a little boy called Gires scored, and they led 1-0 at half time. And we started to chase the game, and we left gaps like anything else, and they beat us, as a very outside Brazil in 1982 France, I think, were the most. They were certainly the most skillful side that would have been.
But you've had a real juxtapose, though, haven't you? You've played for football clubs that won things. You've managed football clubs that were capable of winning things, and then you've managed international or played at international level, where the polar opposite has been this scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly. I think the point you want to get to. What did you enjoy? I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
all of it.
Absolutely. And the idea of putting yourself against the bigger clubs as well, to starting to think of some sort of strategy, plan, call it what you want at the end of it all. And we actually beat, in the Republic of Ireland, to qualify for the Euros in 2016, in October of 2015, we actually beat Germany.
It's a massive result.
We beat Germany, who were the world champions at the time. I think we had about 2.5% possession at the time.
About 2.5% scored a goal.
Absolutely.
Did you ever get dropped by Northern Ireland and then have a tantrum like you did at Forest?
I feel like he knows the answer to
and
this.
I'm ready to put like I don't know the answer to this.
Well, did I get dropped? Yeah, I got dropped.
Did you read the team sheet and see your name not on it and have a turn?
Absolutely. Yes, I did. And that was ridiculous of me because I was only in the game 5 minutes at the time, honestly. And it was so stupid. And Terry Neal, who had a big influence on my career, because Terry Neal ended up, he was the player manager of Hull City at that particular time. Then, of course, he went to Tottenham Forest. And Terry Neal, I threw a tantrum because I wasn't in the starting lineup. I'm 19 years of age at the time, and I threw a tantrum, and because I wanted to play with George Best, who was in the game.
Who wouldn't?
And I mentioned something to one of the newspapers, the Irish newspaper, and it became a bit of a story. So Terry Neal pulled me up to his room. He gave me the biggest rollicking you'd ever imagine, and he said, "Son, you haven't even started in the game, don't you?" But he said, "You're very, very lucky to be in this squad." And he was absolutely correct. He was. And so I had to wait my turn in Fangulate here.
And you did as well. I love these. I love those type of stories. I could listen to Martin and Neil talk about stories all day, but we can't.
Oh, thanks. No.
We can't.
I mean, it'd be better than your hour between 10 and 11 o'clock
I thought 11 and 12 was a vast improvement.
It was great. I'm only kidding.
Have you been following the Morecambe story by any chance?
I have.
I think we
through
briefly touched
YouTube.
it.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yes.
We have an update.
We touched on it on Monday,
we did.
But then you had...
we said they had a deadline to hit by the National League on Monday.
You two were suspended, haven't they?
I was listening to you two yesterday.
There is, Punjab Warriors, who the consortium or
they said they want to move in, don't they?
They said they wanted to take over. We haven't heard or didn't hear from Punjab Warriors. They let the deadline go. They released a statement today. I'm going to a very small part of the statement. Basically, the most important part is this: they said they're ready, willing, and able to buy Morecambe.
Yeah.
I feel like they've said this before.
Well, one would assume. I mean, as we discussed yesterday and kicked it about yesterday, and it does beg a belief. But then again, I've been in positions where I've lent money and not got it back. But they put 1.7 million quid into this football club, and that would, to me, mean that if there's certain conditions around that 1.7 million, that they're going to be in some degree of control. They wouldn't have said anything yesterday because they're in no position to say anything yesterday. They're in no position to influence the National League. The fact of the matter is, the incumbent control is with this fella Jason Wintingham and his regime. And so it doesn't matter what the Punjab Warriors are saying. They've got no jurisdiction in this area. The fact of the matter is they've just re-emerged and said, by the way, we're still here, which will then create a pressure on the fella that's in situ, because they're reminding people that they're still here and they're not going to allow the situation to go any further. And hopefully, they'll have some call on that 1.7 million, because if they've got that lever to pull, then it will liven the fella up who is currently seeming like a dog in a manger. Yeah, because the narrative that's been spun is that they've gone sort of missing, and that the owner has tried to get in touch with them and he couldn't. And I think they're now trying to spin their own narrative by saying, well, 1 second, we're still here. We're here, we want to buy. And look, I guess the reason I'm pointing this out, because if you are a fan of Morecambe, you are starting to get worried. And I still think Tyson Fury should pony up the money. That's what I think. No, I think he's an upstanding member of the Morecambe community. I think it's the very least he can do. Yeah, he lives amongst them, he walks amongst them. He's revered and admired by the people. What if he has really no interest in them? I think he should do it for the people. Just for the sake of the absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. For the community that's embraced him, for the value that he has of the people around him, and for the fact that he prophesies and projects the fact that Morecambe is such an important part of his life. It's the very least Tyson could do. How much do you think? I know we were very briefly looking at their accounts. What would it cost, do you think? 5 million, 6 million, Morecambe? No. Not even that. To buy it? Yeah. No. Okay, that's nothing then for Tyson. No, not at all. That's pennies down the sofa. As Martin will attest to, albeit being from a football manager's point of view, the most expensive part of owning a football club is when you buy it. The most expensive part is running it.
Yeah, that's the big issue, isn't it?
Very true.
Yeah. All right, listening to Oladipo, Jordan and O'Neill on talkSPORT with Salco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. Next, we're going to be joined by our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, to discuss today's transfer news as Newcastle agree a deal to sign goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale. Good morning, Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill here until 1 o'clock. The Qatar Goodwood Festival returns this afternoon as well with Group 1 Sussex Stakes, the feature race on day 2, which takes place at 3:05 p.m. That is one of 5 races that will be live on Hawksbee and Baker, while Racing Live and The Social are going to bring you comprehensive coverage of the event on talkSPORT 2 from 1 o'clock. To listen to all the action, simply download the talkSPORT app to swipe between the stations. We're looking at Simon.
Did you get your coffee?
I did get my coffee, thank you.
We got Martin O'Neill bought a coffee, ignored all...
Can you tell the listeners what Martin did, by the way, as well?
Diminished all the production staff, didn't offer them a coffee,
nothing.
Just got it for us.
Yeah, just basically sent them out like the slaves. And didn't even once say...
The production team told me that you two were talent.
But thank you, Martin, for the coffee. Really appreciate it. Look at our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, all suited and booted, nice tie.
Is he?
Look at where are you, Alex?
I'm in my back garden at the moment, but as you can tell by the attire, straight off to Goodwood for another big day's racing as soon as I'm done with you guys.
Should be fun. Let's talk transfers. James Trafford has rejoined Man City from Burnley. We're hearing it's a record fee for a British goalkeeper. It seems like a strange deal considering they had him a couple of years ago. He's now gone back and Ederson's still there. So is it one for the future? Is it likely Ederson leaves? I feel like there's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think it's more likely that Stefan Ortega leaves this summer, but I don't think Ederson had the best of seasons last term by his previously high standards. I think Trafford is coming in to put pressure on Ederson for that number 1 jersey. And you say it's a strange thing to do, buy back a player that you sold 2 years ago. He left in 2023 for £14 million. They're paying £27 million to bring him back on a 5-year contract. But I think Manchester City would say, actually, this is their policy, reaping dividends, sending young players out to get experience at other clubs, and then activating this matching clause. So Newcastle also had a £27 million bid accepted by Burnley, but ultimately Trafford has decided to go back to his former club. So I think they're pretty pleased with the business that they've done on this deal, Manchester City.
Martin, there seems to be sort of a really big amount now of good number 2 goalkeepers. Mm-hmm. And it's almost a thing that, I mean, there always were good number 2s, but not to this extent. Like every single club seems to have, or at least the top club seems to have a good number 2. Liverpool, Mamardashvili, Alisson, Arsenal, Raya and Kepa. And now we're seeing Trafford and Ederson potentially. It's interesting, isn't it, what's going on?
Right. If you in yesteryear, you didn't have that. You certainly did not. You know, you had your established goalkeeper, as we at Nottingham Forest had Peter Shilton.
You had Chris Woods behind him, right?
Young Chris Wood, but Chris was very young at the time, and even Chris didn't want to stay around and knowing that he wasn't going to play. Right. And Chris Wood turned out to be a fantastic goalkeeper, really, really good. But he was a young kid. He was fantastic for us in the 1978 League Cup final against Liverpool. Nearly was magnificent considering he was 18 years of age. He realised he had a proper career, but it wasn't going to happen at Forest because of Peter Shilton. The point I'm making now is that I think the money, I think if you offer somebody really decent as a goalkeeper and say, listen, you have to fight for your place, or listen, it's up to you, but you're not guaranteed to play, depending on what club you go to. It has not surprised me as much as I thought it would do, considering that you have very, very good number 2s at football clubs. And I think it's probably to do with maybe a decent contract or the possibility, yes, let me sign this now. If I don't break into the team in a year, I'll think about it again.
And Crookie, we continue that theme with Aaron Ramsdale. He's joined Newcastle on loan, a $4 million deal on loan from Southampton. Again, Nick Pope's there. That's a good number 1. I mean, is Ramsdale coming to take Nick Pope's place, or again, is it a good number 2?
No, I think his aim will be to be the number 1. He has the added carrot, if you like, of a place on the plane for next summer's World Cup with England. I think Ramsdale knows that not only does he need to be a number 1 in the Premier League to achieve that dream, I think he needs to avoid another relegation battle. It was a brave move to leave Arsenal's bench to go to a Southampton side that I think were always going to concede goals and go down last season. Arguably, they would have conceded a lot more goals without Ramsdale, who was probably their player of the season, which doesn't say much about the rest of his teammates. But I understand why Newcastle fans maybe are not overexcited about this type of transfer, particularly with the Alexander Isak saga dragging on in the background. But I think they're getting themselves not only a really competent goalkeeper, a good goalkeeper as he proved at Arsenal, helping them get back into the Champions League, but a tremendous character in the dressing room as well. I think once he does get possession of that number 1 jersey, and I do expect him to be Newcastle's number 1, maybe not at the start of the season, but certainly very quickly into the season, I think Newcastle fans will really take him to their hearts.
Well, let's talk about Liverpool. They've dominated the transfer window, mainly with incomings and outgoing now. Luis Diaz has joined Bayern Munich for a fee of around £65 million. I guess for Liverpool fans and for Newcastle fans, it almost points to, okay, now we have the money to go ahead and really go big for Isak. But I feel like Liverpool are losing a proven player here. And I do wonder if there's a mistake in letting someone like Luis Diaz in the peak of his powers go right now.
Yeah, I saw you were tweeting about that the other day. I guess there comes a time, and Simon will have been in this position as an owner, Martin as a manager, you have to decide when is the right time to let a player move on. £65.5 million for a 28-year-old with a couple of years left on his contract seems like decent business. I know Liverpool tried a couple of times to engage in talks to extend that deal, but I think he's always had itchy feet to go and try his luck elsewhere. Obviously, it's a great move for Diaz personally to go to Bayern Munich. He's quoted as saying that he feels he fulfilled his duty at Liverpool and achieved all he could there. So I understand where you're coming from, but I think if this is step one of getting a deal over the line for Alexander Isak, then maybe eventually this might prove good business for Liverpool.
On the business side, I guess it is good money, Simon, right? 65 million, as Alex says, for a 28-year-old.
Yeah,
2 years left.
I mean, but we're talking about 20-odd million quid for a 32-year-old Granit Xhaka going to Sunderland. It is the market. The market's the market. People pay what they pay. It's an interesting one because it's obviously now Slot is beginning to disassemble and reassemble certain aspects of what was the Klopp legacy. Last year he had the embarrassment of riches of not having to do anything besides make sure they were pointed in the right direction. I'm not diminishing what he did by any shape or form. What I'm saying is normally the traditional orthodoxy is the players that he has in the building aren't his players and the team isn't his team. He had that luxury last year of being able to have a wonderful team that went in the right direction. He just kept them on rails and added his own unique touch to it. Yeah. Now we're seeing that change, of course, and obviously the Liverpool ownership would have been delighted last year. Not only did they bring a manager in, he don't spend any money, and he goes and wins with what they've already had. That's an owner's utopia. Now you're seeing it change a little bit. It's an interesting one because obviously the players had a lot of challenges, all the personal situations surrounding the abduction of his father and all of that in the background, and Liverpool were very supportive of his circumstances. He's a good player, but they clearly think, because if they wanted him to stay, I would suspect he would be staying. If they weren't that bothered and they can get a decent fee for him, then they've taken the latter option. I thought he was a good player. I don't know what you thought of him, Martin.
Yeah, he was a good player. Yeah, but I think I agree with you. I think that they think that 28 years of age might as well take this cash here, particularly if they are thinking about someone like Isak. If they are thinking about that, then you might as well accumulate some money, get some money in before you spend it again.
And finally, Crookie, we briefly touched on it. Granit Xhaka's moved to Sunderland. It was on and off, and now it's certainly on. It's happened, hasn't it? 13 million deal we're hearing with 4 million in add-ons. And they've got their man. They've got that experience to add to what is quite a young squad.
They have, and I think this could turn out to be a really important signing for Sunderland. We recorded the Premier League All Access podcast a couple of weeks ago and focused on those 3 newly promoted teams. And I was asked by Sam Matterface, which team do you think has got the best chance of survival? Him and Scott Minto both said Leeds. I went for Sunderland because I think they've made some decent signings. I'm intrigued to see how Simon Adingra lives up to his reputation, having had a bit of a nothing season at Brighton last year. But Granit Xhaka brings that much-needed Premier League experience. And it's a big call from him to leave Bayer Leverkusen, where he's had a couple of successful seasons, obviously played in the Champions League, to take a step into a relegation battle, I think tells you about his character. And they're getting a new goalkeeper in as well. Sunderland, a deal agreed this morning, £9.5 million plus add-ons for a Dutch goalkeeper, Robin Roofs. So he is to undergo his medical. What that means for Anthony Patterson remains to be seen, but I know the goalkeeping area is one that Sunderland have been keen to address this summer. I think we need Sunderland and Leeds and Burnley to be far more competitive than the promoted teams have been the last couple of seasons.
Cheers, Crookie. You look smart. Enjoy Goodwood.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Martin, on Slot, we spoke there about it wasn't a free hit last season, but it clearly was a Klopp team that he had to come and just almost handle the rails a bit. It's now his team. He spent a lot of money. FSG don't really spend that kind of money in one window. I think Klopp really never got anything like this. How much pressure on Slot now to deliver again? Like there's always pressure on Premier League managers, right? And especially a Liverpool manager. But surely it's been ramped up now several-fold because of the money that's been spent.
All right. Well, first of all, I don't think that you, at a football club like Liverpool, you get a free hit. I don't think you get that. I think you have to step in, and I think you have to try.
Especially following Klopp.
Absolutely.
But what were the expectations last season? Top 4?
Well, I suppose so, but even so, listen, let me put it this way. He has, despite that, he has exceeded expectation.
Yeah.
And he's done wonderfully well. Therefore, he also has earned the right to spend some money as well, too. And he knows himself that if he doesn't improve the side, it won't improve. It's just as simple as that there. You have to put something in, and they're going for big players then. And it kind of reminds me at the time that I'm talking about Klopp. Klopp came into Liverpool, didn't spend something for a while, didn't believe in spending an awful lot of money, and then realised maybe I have to, and then they end up spending about, was it 75 or 80 million for a centre half at the time?
But they did that by getting Coutinho out the door for 145 million. They bought the goalkeeper for 70 million and Virgil van Dijk for 70 million with the Coutinho money, didn't they?
Coutinho was didn't work out anyway. Let me put it this way: so they did well to get a lot of money for him.
143 million quid. You got Coutinho. That's what they got.
Is that right?
They got 143, and they went and spent it on Virgil van Dijk and on the goalkeeper Alisson.
143 million for Coutinho.
Yeah.
Gosh, he kind of reminds me of that Joao Felix. You know, the Joao Felix at this minute.
He's gone to Saudi, hasn't he? We'll talk more about Liverpool because we're going to react to their pre-season tour. We're going to have team news about their game from the Moose, Ian Abrahams. But up next, we are going to be speaking to the Daily Mail's chief football reporter, Craig Hope, for the latest on Newcastle's transfer business. Newcastle fans, what have you made of it so far? Yes, we are going to ask the questions about Alexander Isak. You can get in touch as well. Phone lines are open 03717 223344, and you can text us 81089. Craig Hope coming up next.
James Trafford says he always knew he'd return to Man City after his move back to the Etihad was confirmed. Burnley say it's a record figure for a British goalkeeper, claiming it's £31 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. Well, Trafford spent 2 years at Turf Moor, having signed from City for £19 million. Well, another English goalkeeper is also on the move. talkSPORT understands Aaron Ramsdale has agreed to join Newcastle. The Magpies will pay Southampton an initial £4 million loan fee, and there's an option to buy next summer. Well, despite Ramsdale getting relegated from the Premier League 3 times before turning 27, Alex Crook and Alan Brazil both reckon it's a smart acquisition.
I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a brilliant character. I think once he gets in that team, he will build up a bond with the Newcastle fans, and they will grow to love him.
I'm with you.
I think this could be a really good signing.
Do you know who loves him? Ray Parlour loves him. He's a great guy and a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
I'm with you.
At Man United, they've honed in on Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins as their 2 targets up front. Ben Jacobs has told talkSPORT why the Villa man is being considered by the top brass at Old Trafford.
I'm told is a deal that's been put forwards by Ruben Amorim and is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Good morning. You are listening to Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill. Remember, with you until 1 o'clock. Don't forget, we are going to be joined by Ashley Giles as we look ahead to the 5th test between England and India. But Liverpool are in Asia. They take on Yokohama Marinos, and the Moose is going to be there watching it for us. Kickoff is approaching. Moose, do we have team news as yet?
Yeah, kick-off an hour away, and the big team news is Hugo Ekitike makes his first start for Liverpool, first appearance for Liverpool since this summer signing. Mavazvili is in goal. The back four will be Bradley, Van Dijk, Kanate and Kirkes. The midfielders Szoboszlai, Gravenberch and Florian Wirtz will play just ahead, probably behind a front three of Mo Salah one side, Cody Gakpo the other, and Hugo Ekitike through the middle. An exciting lineup then for Arne Slot's side. They begin in Japan in an hour.
Wow, that's a strong Liverpool 11. That's basically the starting 11 that I think will start the first game of the league. So Slot's basically saying, show me what you boys can do. All right, let's talk Newcastle. And no better man to talk about the Geordies than Craig Hope of the Daily Mail. Craig, looks so much to get into. Before we talk Isak, and I know a lot of people will be listening wanting us to go straight into the Isak conversation, Newcastle have agreed a £4 million loan deal to sign Aaron Ramsdale with an option to buy him permanently. Again, if you're a Newcastle fan, you want more through the door. I know Elanga's come. Ramsdale, should Newcastle fans be excited about that? Is he better than Nick Pope? Is Nick Pope on his way out?
Should they be excited? Well, we can probably answer the question, are they excited? Because that deal is very much in the offing now. And the answer is probably no. They've already got a very deep stable of goalkeepers there. But listen, Ramsdale is a sensible signing. He comes in, he provides competition for Pope. The ideal, this would have been internally and externally as well with supporters, would have been James Trafford, a project player who could have inherited that number 1 jersey from Nick Pope. Brilliant with his feet, would have changed the way they played, would have allowed them to evolve over time, which is what Eddie wanted. That deal didn't happen. But Aaron Ramsdale is a good signing. But to answer your question, is it what supporters really want? Is it the news they're waiting for? Well, no, it probably isn't.
Who's making these signings now? Obviously, look, there is no sporting director. Is Eddie Howe in charge? It almost feels like we are going back when managers used to make the signings, such as Martin O'Neill that's with us. Who's doing the deals?
Yeah, well, Eddie has never not had control, really. And you've got to say, since Eddie came into the club approaching 4 years ago, they've absolutely knocked recruitment out the park. You know, Simon will tell you this. They haven't signed many bad ones, and those who they have brought in, they've put value on. No finer example than Alexander Isak. So Eddie's always had a certain degree of control. No player comes or goes without his say-so. That might be a little bit different with Alexander Isak, by the way, as we're going to talk about in a moment. But certainly the absence of a sporting director, the absence of a CEO, coming into one of the most important windows in the club's recent history, that's not good, and it has left a void of leadership there. So it's Eddie Howe with Andy Howe with Steve Nixon. That is the new transfer committee. They're all very capable, but they are finding it difficult.
Is it almost too much for Eddie to control what he does on the pitch, to now have sort of full control off the pitch? I mean, yes, you want managers to sign players, but I guess as a club owner...
Well, it's a fascinating narrative, isn't it? Because this time last year, everybody was turning around and saying how dreadful it was for Eddie having to work with Paul Mitchell, because Paul Mitchell was being divisive and not being facilitatory, and there was a rift between Eddie and so on and so forth. That was the narrative that's been spun this year. Now the narrative this year is the poor sod doesn't have a sporting director. Which one is it?
Yeah.
Well,
there needs to be a happy medium.
Simon, it can be both. Both things can be true. Paul Mitchell
both things can be media nonsense creating division.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say both things are true, Simon.
Part of the media nonsense.
Yeah. No, I'm not, Simon. Listen, you get me on here all the time to talk about my stories because they're true. So, you know, you guys sit there for 3 hours talking about it, so don't come back at me and say it's nonsense. You really enjoyed the Isak story I broke last week, didn't you? So there you go. It's not nonsense. Paul Mitchell. Now, would it have been better if Mitchell had stayed there this summer? Well, probably yes, because someone is better than no one. But was the Mitchell appointment right? No, it wasn't, as I wrote in.
But the point I was making, Craig, was that you guys were spinning the narrative last year that there was a massive division between the sporting director and the manager, and none of you have actually ever done these jobs, but you're so-called experts in it. So the reality is that Eddie Howe is perfectly capable of making decisions without a sporting director on what players he does or doesn't want. What he really wants is access direct to the money, and the money to say yes to his requests.
You call it spinning the narrative. I call it reporting the facts. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. All right, okay.
Well, no, I do. It's the truth.
Okay, order. Let's talk Alexander Isak, Craig. I mean, that's what a lot of people want to know about. What is the latest? What's going on? We're hearing things like he's not turning up for training. We're hearing things like he's down tools, that he's almost gone on strike. Again, look, you're closer to the story than anyone else. What's the truth here?
Well, he's not here. That's point number one. And, if we look at the facts of this case before we go into the opinion and what may or may not happen, and I'm fascinated to get Simon's take as well on this, believe it or not. He isn't here. He wants to leave the club. He wants to join Liverpool. We believe that Liverpool are already in a British club record offer, and that is when Newcastle will have the decision to make. We don't know which way that decision is going to go. Now, from my take, if you're asking my opinion, I always think, and I think Simon will back this up, and that's why I want his perspective as a club owner, there's always a right time to sell a player. Alexander Isak at the moment has 3 years left on his contract. Newcastle are in a very strong position from that perspective, so they could, and they should, and they probably will try to extract absolute maximum value for the player. The alternative is they keep him for another 12 months. 2 years left on a deal is an infinitely weaker position, and you've probably kept an unhappy player for a year. So that is the decision they're facing. The caveat to all of this is they cannot sell if they do not have the replacements lined up to come in. What they cannot do is agree to sanction the move, not have anybody lined up or at least one foot in the door, and then say to the world, hey guys, we've got £150 million to spend, because you know what will happen? They'll have their pants taken down and their bank account emptied. So it's a really delicate balance here. And I'd throw it back to my friend Simon. What's your take on it? What should they do? What would you do?
Well, I think you're right to some extent that they should extract the maximum value. That's a given. Again, certain thought processes have been about Newcastle's challenges with PSR. This is not a PSR sell. This is a player being courted by potentially a legacy football club and having his head turned. The challenge is what do you want to do as a football club? You do not get bigger, better and bolder by selling your best players. Of course, at the same token, Craig is right to say there was a time to sell a player. And it depends upon the football club. You could make the argument there was always a time to sell a player. It depends upon the club. Liverpool always had a time to sell a player. They sold Kevin Keegan in 1978 to Hamburg, or 77, whatever it was. It was the right time to replace him with Kenny Dalglish, and that was an opportunity for them. I'm disappointed for Newcastle, because I think that they're being hamstrung by the circumstances of timing in their ownership models, and we all know that. I think it's fundamentally flawed that Chelsea and Man City were able to do what they were able to do, and Newcastle aren't able to do what they're doing. I don't agree with the bleating around some of the Newcastle fan base that this is unfair, because it's no more unfair than when you raided Everton for Anthony Gordon when Everton were in financial difficulties. It's the nature of the beast, the circumstances. I'm disappointed in Isak because I don't know who his agent is, Craig. Who's his agent?
Vlado Lemic, a Serbian guy.
Okay. And I'm looking at this because I thought there was an element of, we're talking about Isak wanting more money at one point, and I thought to myself, that's a challenging one. You've signed a 3-year contract. If the market says you're worth more money, then you're worth more money. But you did sign a contract which tells that you're under a certain governance for the next 3 years. If I'm in Newcastle's shoes, in Eddie Howe's shoes, I'm in a situation where Eddie's not in control of the situation. He never has been. You're never in control of a situation fully, are you, Martin, with a player?
No, that's absolutely, and more so than ever before now, because this question I was actually going to put, who is in charge here? Is it the football club or is it the player? Eddie said, he said yesterday something about it's in control to a certain extent.
Yeah. What does that certain extent mean?
The player. What you can do in this situation is that you. First of all, Eddie said that there was no formal offer in, so whatever's happening has been happening elsewhere. So if a side like Liverpool are coming in and that's where he wants to go, at some stage, the club will have to just say, okay,
show your hand.
Show your hand, and here's the price.
Yeah.
This is the price that we are asking for. And you say to the player, this is what you're worth. I'm telling you, you've signed a 5-year deal. You've got 2 years. You've 3 years left to run. We don't want you to leave the football club. We never have wanted you to leave the football club. We'd love you to sign 10 years if that was the case. We don't want you to leave. But if you leave, this is the price. And if somebody comes up with that there, then we'll have to take it.
How do you reintroduce the player to a group that clearly are annoyed with a player wanting to go?
It's not so much. I'll tell you what, it's not so much that there, because the other players in the dressing room would like to be in the position that Isak's in. They'd love to be that for a start. This idea about players' loyalty, listen, it's out the window.
For the birds, yeah.
Here's the point.
And just on that as well, Simon made a point there that he was disappointed in Isak. And this is part of the dilemma Newcastle have got now, because if they do allow Isak to go, his behaviour and the way he's gone about this in the last 10 days almost sets a blueprint for any player wanting to leave, what do you do?
Well, that's why they've got to be strong, Craig.
Absolutely.
Is there an instance, Craig, where, because everyone's going to wait for someone to blink, right? Whether it's Newcastle blink and throw the towel in and say, we accept the player, it's got to go, or Liverpool pony up an offer and make it more formal than it currently is now, or the player comes to play and starts to become a bit more difficult and starts talking about transfer requests and things of that nature. Do you get any indication that, despite the fact that the player is playing hide and seek with himself at this moment in time, and we're reading between the lines as to why that might be, that you could find a situation like Riyad Mahrez, where all of a sudden the player has the audacity to really throw down the gauntlet and say, I want out of here and here's my transfer request and I'm not playing until I get some movement?
Yeah. Well, what's the greatest indicator of the future, Simon? It's the past. And what do the past 10 days tell us about Alexander Isak? Absolutely. I think he could be prepared to do that. He trained last Monday. After 5 minutes, said that he felt his thigh, walked back into the building, hasn't been seen around his teammates since. Had a subsequent scan. That scan came back clear. You join the dots from that. So if, when Newcastle do return to Tyneside and they start training and they start playing, will Isak want to be part of that? The Liverpool deal hasn't gone through. I've got my doubts.
From a legal standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, he's under contract.
Of course.
Newcastle is still paying him every single week for his services. How can he just decide not to train if he's fit to train?
Well, ultimately, you can put yourself in a situation where sporting chance becomes prevalent. And if you start going down the route of forcing players to evaluate themselves through medical conditionality, you're going to have a downward spiral. The challenge for me is what Newcastle are prepared to do. We've just seen Marinos, right, tell his player, in no uncertain terms, believe this how you want to believe it, and he will tell this. Marinos has told this boy he's going to do as he's told, and he's told him that ultimately, and the reason why the noise about contractual situations and release clauses are put out there is he's concentrating people's minds. You want to have a fight? We'll have a fight. Now, whether Newcastle want to go down the route, I think Newcastle are going to have to sell this player. What I want for Newcastle is to make sure they get every last single penny that they should get for one, arguably the most talented footballers in his position in the world.
Absolutely. Tell me this thing, Craig. Where is the agent standing in this? Has the agent gone to Newcastle and said that my player wants to explore possibilities, all that type of stuff? Or does he know that there might be a proper offer in the table for the player at some stage or another? And the third point I really want to say is, if it doesn't happen, what's the fans' reaction to a player who was revered there? Now, my general view is this here, that foreign players get away with it more often than domestic players would do. Domestic players will feel. I've always felt this. Domestic players. I'm talking about British players. He's saying playing in the league, who have tried to force the hand and had to come back again. I think the fans turn against them. But the foreign players seem to, after about a month, we're back in business.
So what would the reaction be?
What would the reaction be to Newcastle fans who have absolutely revered this player?
Yeah, okay, I'll answer your first point, Martin, and that is, yes, they have communicated to Newcastle's hierarchy their wish, their desire to move on. They wouldn't have done that without having the encouragement from Liverpool. So that answers the first point. The second point, now, if Alexander Isak was here and all of this was going on, he was still training, he was still playing, I think supporters would be more sympathetic to his situation. And I'll give you my take on this. I don't begrudge Alexander Isak for wanting to move. He's given Newcastle 3 tremendous years of his career. He's helped end the 70-year trophy drought. He's 26 later this year. He doesn't want to play in the Champions League. He wants to win the Champions League. He's also being paid a wage which is probably half his value on the open market. Alexander Isak wanting to go isn't the issue here. It's the way he's potentially going about it and going to go about it. So if this didn't happen, and there's a lot of reasons why it couldn't happen, how he's then reintegrated to the fold with his teammates and by extension supporters, that might be a little more difficult than it perhaps could and should have been.
Craig, you've been fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on and clearing up loads for us there. Newcastle fans, get in touch. You heard it there. This Alexander Isak saga continues. 03717 223344. What do you make of the one away striker? And would you want him back if he does decide to do the big U-turn?
10k for Coldplay.
Phone lines have absolutely lit up. We're going to go to them straight away, but first, a competition to remind you about. You can win 10 grand at a huge VIP night out at Wembley for Coldplay, and it ends on Monday. That's right. We're giving you the chance to win 6 tickets in a private box for you and your mates. August 22nd with full hospitality. Plus, as I said, we're chucking in 10 grand spending money, tax-free. Here's how to enter. Remember, it's 18 plus UK, excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, just simply text the word WIN to 83338. That's WIN to 83338. Closing date is the 4th of August, 11 p.m. and you're going to be in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission. Or you can post your name and number to Coldplay competition at PO Box 3190 Colchester CO2 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 7th of August. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. All right. Turn the music down. Just mustn't waste no time. Let's get straight to the phone lines. Let's go to Andrew first, a Newcastle fan. Andrew, you heard Craig there. You've heard Martin and Simon's opinions on it. What's your thoughts on this Alexander Isak saga and how does it end?
Right, lads. Well, there's a couple of things. So, firstly, the fact that it's dragging on and he said that he wants to leave, etc., etc. For me, with the club coming out and Amanda said a few years ago, we're here to win everything, we're here to do this, we're here to do that. What Simon's just said there, I think the club need to come out and just say it doesn't matter what money's coming in for you this summer, especially how long it's dragged on now. You're going nowhere. You're under contract for 3 years. You are not leaving this football club. We're going to offer you a new deal. You're going to sign it. You're going to take the number 9 shirt. We're going to sell lots of shirts. We'll put a release clause in, whether that's the fee that the club are wanting now. We want 1 more year out of you, which we feel that you owe us. You've got 3 years on your deal. We're going to pay you what you're worth, which should have been titled long before this has ever come. Like, the player is underpaid massively. If the club are turning bids down for around 120, 130 million, then he should be paid for what he's worth. So that's on the club. And I think the club need to come out and say this to him, that you need to sign this new deal. We've got a gentleman's agreement. If the money comes in, there's a release clause. You can go next year with our blessing. But the fact that it's dragging out, I think it's a bit ridiculous. The club have got a lot to answer for. I think it's a bit of a mess since I think Amanda's left. Various directors of football. We've got a CEO that's unwell and said he was leaving. He's still at the club. I think it's a little bit of a mess, to be honest. The transfer window, I think we should have 3 or 4 players in by now. I think the players will be looking at thinking what's going on. I don't blame him for wanting to leave. He's going to one of the biggest clubs in the world, like you say, compete for the best trophies. He's going to be paid what he's worth. But in terms of him, the way he's went on, personally, I don't see how anyone could say he wouldn't welcome him back. He's the best striker in the world. So if this deal doesn't come off, first game of the season comes round, he's starting for me and he's got the number 9 shirt.
Yeah, something's got to happen quickly, hasn't it, Simon? Whether that means Newcastle get a striker in or Liverpool make a bid. Liverpool haven't made a bid yet.
But I think some of that analysis is a little unfair on Newcastle as a football club. What else could they have done with Alexander Isak? They've got him on a 3-year contract.
Could have paid him more money.
Well, so hang on a second. Do you believe that if he'd been getting more money and Liverpool came knocking on the door, he still wouldn't want to go to Liverpool? Do you think it's just a financial situation? What is Newcastle's responsibility in this? Newcastle signed a player, took a view, paid decent money for him, brought him into the side, have been successful with him most of the time in that period. They've still got 3 years left on their contract. They've done all their due diligence. So if Newcastle went knocking on the door of the player at the beginning of this summer, before Liverpool showed any interest, and said, we want to give you a new contract, what do you think the agent would have said? The agent would have said, thank you, we'll have some more money, but by the way, we want a release clause stuck in that contract as well. And it would have achieved nothing. I don't think Newcastle have done anything fundamentally wrong here. I think there's nothing they could have done to change the situation. Do you disagree with me?
I think, and we don't know this for certain, but if they wanted to keep him at the football club and pay him what he's worth, if he is worth £150 million, then I think they should do that. And who knows, they may well have done. I'm not so sure that the agent would immediately have said, oh, we'll take that money and then the following day have a release clause in it. But what I am saying is that the point that I think is really worth making, it is, we're paying what he's worth, yes, but he's still got another 3 years left to run. If he doesn't want to stay at the football club, if he definitely wants to go, the point that we made before, Simon, is that, listen, that's the price there. If somebody pays this for you, you can go. If you don't, you stay here.
The challenge for Newcastle fans is it's not a case that, and I take your point entirely, they wouldn't trigger the release clause instantaneously, but they would trigger it the following season. So it's not a case of if Alexander Isak leaves Newcastle, it would appear a case of when he leaves. So that's the thing that Newcastle fans need to get their head round, is that players that are coming into Newcastle, despite the nature of their ownership, are going to use Newcastle as a stepping stone to an opportunity to play for one of the legacy football clubs. And that's the part that Newcastle fans have got to bite down on their gum shields about, and they won't like. Because they will believe they've got the richest owners in the world, and they should be able to be that club that is able to do what Man City and Chelsea have done, which is reinvent themselves to be a dominant force in English football because of the money that's available to them, and now they can't. And Isak's conduct and behaviour, to my mind, is just a reflection of the times that we live in and the balance of power. Because really and truly, what Newcastle should be able to do in the real world that we live in now, outside of football, is turn around to a player and go, "You got 3 years left on your contract. Shut up.
You're not going nowhere." Doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. Andrew, great call. Let's see if we can go one more very quickly. Michael, Newcastle fan. Michael, what happens now? What do you want to happen? I guess the biggest issue for Newcastle as well is there's not exactly a bidding war for Isak, is it? It looks like there's only one club at the table for the best striker in the world, and that one club's Liverpool.
Yeah, more than it. I just think Newcastle need to, like Simon said, bite down, stop being this stepping stone, this rung on the ladder that they used to propel themselves up with to a better team. Yeah, it's Liverpool.
Isn't every club that, apart from Real Madrid, what club isn't that? Like, what club really isn't a stepping stone to another club?
It all depends how you view your team. But I mean, it's Johan Cabaye done it. It's a thing of the past for Newcastle. They come to us and then they move on. But the Isak one, when he first came out, fans all around Newcastle have been good. But the way he's conducted himself and he's carried on, it'll be now, like yourself personally, I'm like, well, just get rid of him. He's going to upset the balance if the team. If he doesn't go, he'll either A, be like a petulant child and throw his toys out the pram, or B, he'll play out of his skin because he'll want the move. He'll want to be the best he's ever played.
Yeah.
There is a bidding war. There was a bit. By the way, don't characterise it as, they're going to have to take what Liverpool might be prepared to spend. Right, as the only game in town.
Who's the bidding war?
3-year contract. There's the bidding war. 3-year contract, do as you're told, or go to Liverpool under our terms of 150 million quid. That's the competitive tension in the conversation.
Yeah. But how bad is it? And I guess this is the question for both of you. An unhappy player in a camp.
I think, again, it's getting back to the point about how it was handled. I don't think anybody begrudges the fact that if he is the top striker in the world or one of the top three, then he should be paid what he's worth. That's fine. It's the way he's gone about it. It's the way he and the agent have dealt with the situation, number one. But secondly, you keep getting back to that point about it won't be disruptive. I'll tell you something. If it doesn't happen, and I'm no soothsayer here, but if it doesn't happen, it'll settle down. And in 3 months' time, in November, when he's just lashed in the second goal against Liverpool or something, I guess, or whatever the case may be, the crowd will be right with him.
Yeah, we've seen similar situations. Luis Suarez, when he could have gone to Arsenal, if Arsenal didn't bid 40 million and £1, was it? And all of a sudden he's back for Liverpool scoring goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it can happen. All right, up next we're going to be speaking to former England spinner Ashley Giles, head of the fifth test between England and India, which begins tomorrow.
James Trafford says he always knew he'd return to Man City after his move back to the Etihad was confirmed. Burnley say it's a record figure for a British goalkeeper, claiming it's £31 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. Well, Trafford spent 2 years at Turf Moor, having signed from City for £19 million. Well, another English goalkeeper is also on the move. talkSPORT understands Aaron Ramsdale has agreed to join Newcastle. The Magpies will pay Southampton an initial £4 million loan fee, and there's an option to buy next summer. Well, despite Ramsdale getting relegated from the Premier League 3 times before turning 27, Alex Crook and Alan Brazil both reckon it's a smart acquisition.
The reaction from Newcastle fans is mixed, I think, on Aaron Ramsdale. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a brilliant character. I think once he gets in that team, he will build up a bond with the Newcastle fans, and they will grow to love him.
I'm with you.
I think this could be a really good signing.
Do you know who loves him? Ray Parlour loves him. He's a great guy and a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
I'm with you.
At Man United, they've honed in on Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins as their 2 targets up front. Ben Jacobs has told talkSPORT why the Villa man is being considered by the top brass at Old Trafford.
Is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now. Again, the fee there is £60 million or 70 million euros if they just met the asking price today. But some Manchester United sources feel that if Villa find a replacement, their not for sale stance or their high price may drop.
Well, talkSPORT also understands another forward, Daniel Ndoye, has now completed his move from Bologna to Nottingham Forest. And if you thought the Test series between England and India was already a bit aggy, it's just gone to another level. This time the row was between India's head coach Gautam Gambhir and the Oval's head groundsman Lee Fortis. This after Fortis asked the India squad to move away from the main square while practising. Gambhir's reply was, "You're just a groundsman, don't tell us what to do." Oh, you're odd. There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Good morning, just gone 11 o'clock. Ade Oladipo alongside Martin O'Neill and Simon Jordan. We are going to be talking Marco Silva a bit later, Fulham manager, who's spoken about what the club can expect this season. And we're going to hear or talk about Brentford and Mbeumo as well. Remember, new Manchester United striker, about his expectations this season as well. A bit of breaking news, you probably just heard it in the news there. Ben Stokes is out of the 5th test. The England men's team have announced 4 changes to their starting 11 in that 5th test against India at the Kia Oval. Remember, it starts on Thursday. Captain Ben Stokes is unavailable due to a right shoulder injury. Also missing out are spinner Liam Dawson and pace bowler Jofra Archer, as well as Bryden Carsey. Let's welcome in Ashley Giles, former England spinner and current CEO of Worcestershire. Before we talk, and I do want to talk about county cricket with you, Ashley, but before we do that, reaction to that breaking news that Ben Stokes is out. Massive blow that for England.
Yeah, morning. It's huge news for England. Stokes is the talisman for the team, obviously, as well as being a captain, but the role he's played with bat and ball, probably more particularly ball, over the last couple of matches has been huge for the team. So it's a big loss, and 4 changes across the side is a lot, actually, going into the last Test match.
Is that a reflection on the draw from the 4th Test? Is that just a case of England deciding to mix things up a little bit?
Well, I think partly the injury is probably a reflection on the draw and the length of this series so far. England have wanted to play almost quick cricket over the last couple of years, but this series has been long and hard and really drawn out. And Stokes' workload has probably been higher than he's had for some time. So that's probably led to this injury. In terms of the other changes, I'm not sure. But I'd say 4 changes in one team. Some of that can be down to Stokes missing, being the all-rounder in the team. But otherwise, that is quite a lot.
Harmison said that Stokes is our best bowler. True? False?
Currently, yeah. I think he's the leading wicket taker in the series. I think he's about 70 wickets this series, which again shows his quality. We know what he can do with a bat. We've seen that repeatedly, but I think this stresses the issue that we also need to wrap him up in cotton wool occasionally, because he is so important to the side, and he's got to be careful how many overs he bowls.
Actually, I know you always listen to talkSPORT, so you were probably listening yesterday as it came out. Of course you were. As it came out that cricket was the second biggest sport from our poll, and it was quite a large poll as well. 5,000 people voted behind football. Test cricket's always been massive in this country. I guess the biggest issue has been sort of county cricket and getting the numbers up there and the interest there. A, does that surprise you that it is the second biggest sport? Again, talkSPORT listeners voted in. And B, how do we get county cricket to the level of interest that Test cricket has?
Well, firstly, I'm pleasantly surprised. You know, I've been in cricket my whole life. It's a great game. Has a huge following around the world. But to get that number 2 spot with your followers is great. From a county cricket point of view, look, I played a long time ago, 30 years ago. And the crowds were similar then for the Red Bull game as they are now. You know, county cricket holds a very, very important place in what England are doing. You know, we develop the cricketers here that go on and play for England, so that role remains important. I think the way we've seen the county game change over time is the different formats, you know, whether it be T20, 50-over cricket, and now, of course, the 100. There is something for everyone, and we've got to move with the times. We've got to move with the commerciality of the game, whilst, of course, protecting the history and the fundamentals, which is that longer Red Bull format.
I know you are a big cricket fan. I found that out yesterday, actually, when we were having that conversation. Test cricket always seems to draw the eyes of the casuals. Everyone tunes in for Test cricket, right? Whether it be a big test like India or the Ashes. How do we get eyeballs on county cricket more?
Well, I mean, the idea that county cricket is dying in the cradle is probably wrong, because actually just addressed the argument about the scenarios surrounding, you know, format changes. Cricket has been quite innovative and been forced to be quite innovative. Yeah. Test cricket has also changed. We're now seeing 5th days in Test cricket being the exception and not the rule, which is a bit of a disaster for some of the venues, because ultimately they don't get the revenues that they want. But I wanted to ask you, Ashley, about the culture of English cricket amongst the Test team and the attitude, because we're seeing a lot of rivalry going on. We're seeing a lot of, I would say, argy-bargy, for want of a better expression. The media reporting things yesterday about some of England's behaviour, the puerility of it and banality of it and small-mindedness of it. I don't agree with that. The idea that they're being more aggressive. I talked to Stuart Broad last year about Basbourne understanding that mentality. How would you assess the framework of English cricket now? Because I like the fact that we're bold. I like the fact we play attacking cricket. I can't get anyone to tell me what Basball is. I spoke to him both of them. He didn't know what it was. I spoke to Stuart Broad. He didn't know what it was. He thinks it's a concoction of the media. But in there is a question, if you can pick it out, about the culture of English cricket and where it's going.
Yeah, look, I can only go on what I've seen recently. I think we are seeing, actually, in this series, you know, firstly, we're seeing 2 giants of the game slugging it out. It's like 2 heavyweights in a ring. And I think this series has been a really good advert for Test cricket. And we've seen longer games. As I said, generally recently, England have liked to play quick cricket, get matches done within 4 days, score at 5, 6 and over, etc. But in how we've played on the field, I think we've seen a bit of niggle. Now, that's got to be controlled. There's been a bit of spice there, but I think actually it's also been quite good viewing as long as it's controlled. There's bits of it I'm not sure about. We saw something at the end of the last Test match where India wanted their 2 batsmen to get to hundreds and England got upset. Now, for me, okay, the captain deals with that, Stokes. He's strong enough to deal with that. And it's not a great look for the game if 4, 5, 6 players are getting stuck in. We even saw an incident yesterday, didn't we, with the Indian head coach and the groundsman at Surrey. But it just shows the reach of cricket now, particularly when India are involved. Anytime India are involved in a cricket match, it just goes around the world and it's huge news and everyone's got a camera pointed at you. So that incident in itself yesterday, I think the Indian coach may reflect on that and go, well, maybe I got bits of that wrong. But in that environment, as I say, when every camera, every microphone is pointed at you, you go into occasionally.
Actually, I'm Martin O'Neill here. I just wanted
to... You don't have to introduce yourself, Martin.
Hey, Martin.
Actually, just a couple of things. One, about the needle, I think that's good. If Stokes had been put in the situation where he had two lads about to try and score a century where the game is done for, he would have been annoyed about somebody trying to call a halt to proceedings, I think, for number one. And if I was the India captain, I'd be asking my two mans, particularly Jadeja, I think, who should have been, I think, was dropped by Root on first ball, which turns the whole game. But the point I'm making, and the second thing about Gambier speaking to the groundsman, what was he looking for? Was he looking to get on to see what the pitch was like? Because sometimes groundsmen, I'm not talking about this particular one, I'm talking about soccer groundsmen become really, really precious about their ground. Anybody standing a foot in the ground, keep off the grass, which is a half an inch away from where it is. It does my brain in, I must admit, when I see it. So I was kind of on Gambier's side, not knowing what he was saying, in all honesty, but if I find out that he wanted to do something on the pitch that was against the rules, then that's a different issue. But it looks as if he just wanted to see what the pitch was like.
Yeah, so Martin, as you say, I don't know the exact circumstances. I've heard different things, like a bag may have been dragged across the square, which, some of the other playing surfaces, not necessarily the pitch they were playing the test match on. And I know groundsmen hate that sort of stuff because it will damage surfaces. They are quite precious, and that's not a criticism, but that's their nursery. That's all they live for, is preparing those pitches. So, when I say Gambia may look back on some of it and think, I've got it wrong, I think the line about you're just a groundsman or you're only a groundsman.
I know, that was poor. That was poor. Absolutely.
That shows a certain lack of respect.
Yes.
And I think he will regret that. But also, in his defence, he's 2-1 down in a huge series. In that position as India coach, as I say, all eyes are on you all of the time, and expectation will be wherever you are that you win matches. So I can understand the tension. If it's about looking at the pitch, I think some of those things sometimes can be a bit too tight. After all, tomorrow they hand the pitch over and they get on with it, and everyone's all over it. So it's an unsavoury moment, but I have enjoyed over the last 4 matches, and going into tomorrow, that extra bit of spice. And I've also enjoyed actually the way England have adapted this series, because they've sort of seemed to have played one way, call it Bazball or call it whatever you want, but in a couple of games they've had to adapt their style, and I think they've done it reasonably well.
Yeah.
Can I ask you in closing, Ashley, about the challenges that await them in Australia and how this team is set up against the Aussies? Talking about unsavoury things, we can remind ourselves of Pat Cummins and their antics the last time they were over here. How do you think this team is set up culturally and spiritually and actually to be able to deal with the Aussies in Australia?
Well, there's a few things from experience you need to go to Australia with. You need to go with a very confident team, a team that's winning. You've got to go with pace. So Jofra Archer being back in the team is absolutely crucial. We've seen the difference even over the last couple of tests. They need to get Mark Wood fit, and they need to keep Cast fit. But Australia is a completely different challenge. It's important to win this series. If England win this series against a very strong Indian team, great. But the ultimate challenge is winning in Australia, and that's what people are judged by. That's what regimes are judged by. Again,
are you optimistic for that? Are you optimistic for them putting out a good showing?
I am. I think it'll be a tougher series, but I do think again they're going to have to adapt, because in Australia on bigger grounds against consistent short fast bowling, you can't just play one way. We've seen that also in the past, so they're going to have to be able to change their game. But the most important thing will be keeping their best team on the park, including Ben Stokes.
Actually, before I let you go, I have to ask you about your autobiography, The King of Spain and I. Interesting title, interesting name for an autobiography. For our listeners, explain it. I know the story, but it's best that you kind of explain where the Spain bits come from.
Yeah, the King of Spain bit was born out of early on in my England career when I had some success. The shop at Edgbaston sent away for some mugs that were supposed to declare me as the King of Spin. They came back as misprints. They came back as the King of Spain. And that story sort of grew over years. And then when I had more success with England, it became everything. Spanish flags in the ground. And actually, to this day, it is the one thing I know. If people clock me in the street, they walk past and within about 5 yards, they're shouting the King of Spain. And I suppose this book is about my playing career, with a big part of it around that 2005 Ashes. But the King of Spain and I suppose, is a reflection also on the King of Spain was this cricket character, and then there was me, the guy who sometimes struggled with the game, the highs and lows of the game. And this book is supposed to reflect all of that journey.
Sounds like a good book. It's a great title as well. Ashley, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, Ashley Giles. The King of Spain and I, which is available to buy now. I love a good autobiography.
So do I.
Yeah,
so
I think to read back about that Ashes story.
Good book. Read Martin's book is a very good book.
Yeah. Oh, thanks very much, Simon. Thank you.
All right, listening to Oladipo, Jordan and O'Neill. He's got about 7 books, hasn't he? On talkSPORT with Selco Builders. How many books have you got?
1 bestseller, like his.
Both of you bestsellers?
Well, since I bought all the copies, then mine.
Up next, we're going to be looking at Liverpool's pre-season fixture against Japanese side Yokohama Marinos, which begins at 11:30. Good morning, this is Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill here until 1 o'clock. Liverpool continue their pre-season tour. They play the Yokohama Marinos. Kickoff is about 15 minutes away. The Moose is going to be watching for talkSPORT. A reminder of the teams, Ian.
Strong team. Marinos is in goal. The back four is Bradley, Van Dijk, Kanate and Kirkes. Slobozai, Grabenberch, Wirtz just behind a front three of Gakpo one side, Salah the other. And the big team news is that Hugo Ekitike makes his debut. But look at this for the bench. It includes the likes of Darwin Núñez, Alexis McAllister, Harvey Elliott, Jones on the bench, so too Tsimikas and Robertson, and also summer signing Frimpong. You can't say that Ade, that Liverpool are struggling here.
Yeah, that almost, and I was saying it to the gents here, Ian, that looks like the starting 11, or as strong as the starting 11 that could start the season. It's almost as though Arne Slot's decided, okay, let's roll out the big guns for this one.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder whether Frimpong for Bradley or whether Bradley will be given the nod straight away at right back. Cover at centre-half does look to be a bit of a problem with only Joe Gomez to go alongside Van Dijk and Konate. But with Luis Diaz this morning having gone to Bayern Munich, you'd have to say Liverpool will probably step up their search for, or their pursuit, I should say, of Alexander Isak. So I think Liverpool's policy this season will be we'll score quite a lot of goals, and if you can get our back line, we've got enough to cover them.
Cheers, I most appreciate it. More updates from that game as and when goals go in, and I do feel that goals will go in on that one. Martin, Liverpool, I guess the old adage is strength from a place of strength, right? And Liverpool have done that in this window. Can you make too many new signings? How easy or difficult is it to integrate 5 or 6 players into a starting 11?
If you're given time, I don't think it's a major problem. I think that they've... if you're signing players pre-season and you've a chance to integrate them into a number of pre-season matches, I don't think it's that difficult. And I don't think, the better player you are, the easier it is for you to integrate yourself into the team. You know, it's it is not, seriously, it's still a simple game. And regardless of what people say, you know, you should be able to know it. And Graham Souness tells that fantastic story when he signed from Middlesbrough to Liverpool for about £400,000. He spent the week there, no one saying a word to him, nobody. And then the opening game, they're getting changed, and he goes to, I think it's to Joe Fagan, and says, he said, "What do you expect me to do?" He said, "What?" He said, "We've just paid £400,000 for you. Work it out for yourself." And there is that. The better the player, the easier it is.
Yeah, they do say that, right? Football is an easy game. Just if you have good players around you.
What there is, that there's a new language about football now, but it's still the same terms. You know, the high press, the low block. That's new terminology, but it's happened. We, in the European Cup final in 1980, we lost Trevor France, who's one of the best players in European football at the time. We lost him to an injury 3 weeks beforehand. We have to go in with an 18-year-old kid into the side. So our strategy, our plan is going to change. And what we do is we decided to have an extra player in the midfield, and Gary Bird will stay on his own. It was called, in those days, flooding the midfield. Exactly the same as it is now, you know. Exactly. Those things have not changed. It's just the terminology has changed.
What's your favourite terminology? I love the terminology breaking the lines, which means passing the ball forward.
Listen, and I've used it myself, I must admit, only because I'm not good enough to find another word for it. The word transition is doing my brain in. It does my brain in. Well, we've done it in transition. And, yeah, okay, fine. I wonder what Brian Clough and Jock Steeman have thought of transition. You know, do you know what it is? It's actually... Here's an interesting one. I'll just say that. Peter Taylor, who was an excellent... I didn't get on too well with him. I just had that as a little rider, but it doesn't really matter. He was brilliant for Nottingham Forest and brilliant for Brian Clough, and a real great spotter of a player when he was at his hungriest and at his very, very best. And he was asked about secrets in the game, and he said, "I'll tell you what you do." He said, "The best thing you can do is you buy good players and get them hustling." What he meant by hustling was the minute you've lost the ball, you're back in again to win the ball. And Guardiola did that there with Barcelona 50 years later or 45 years later. At the end of the day, the quicker you get the ball back. And Peter Taylor was saying that there to us in 1978, 79 and 1980. Get good players and get them hustling. So in other words, the good players can deal with the ball when they have it. It's the other part of the game. It's exactly.
So the game hasn't changed as much as people would like to feel it has changed. It's still football.
It's still football.
The only caveat to that, and Martin I think will qualify this as well, is the quantum of finances provides another dimension for managers to have to deal with players, because once upon a time you could control players a little bit more with the economics. Now you've got economic islands on their own.
Yeah, that's a part. I'm just talking about the actual game, the structure of the game as you're playing it. You know, it doesn't really matter. And of course, you would be considered, if you don't use these terms now, and young managers are in that predicament, you are definitely a what would I call a superannuated Luddite. There's no question about it. If you don't use these terms,
you've got to use them.
You've got to use them. You've got to use the term.
Breaking the lines.
You have to use the terms. There's no question about it. Otherwise, you would be considered a 73-year-old Luddite. You know.
How are Liverpool able to spend so much money? Again, if they go for Isak, they're going to have to go over 130 million.
From which point of view? From the point of view of PSR? Or
from the point of view of PSR.
Cash?
PSR.
Well, they must have bandwidth. It's not difficult, is it? I mean, they will capitalise these players over a period of time. If they're signing Isak and the other two players on 5-year contracts, they'll depreciate them at £45 million a season for the overall spend. They must have some bandwidth within the confines of the last 3 years of accounts. They'll sell Diaz, book a profit there. Maybe they'll sell Harvey Elliott, book a profit there, absorb the extra depreciation that's come in from these £250 million of a transfer. They wouldn't have had any last summer. So they didn't have that, so they've carried that forward.
Yeah.
So they're in a position to do it now from the cash side of things. Well, they've got plenty of cash, haven't they? I mean, the owners have got cash, and if they haven't got cash, they've got relationships with people that can give them cash, which will be banks or funding opportunities, because they're a viable economic business that's playing in a space that's very now much of an industry that's much more mature in terms of being able to borrow or fund money. So they'll have no issues on either, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
I certainly don't want sanctions, because the idea of running a business now on the basis of, well, we'll take a view. You know, we get a £25 million sanction, fine, we'll put it into our business plan. Now it's points. So it won't be that we'll break the mould. It'll be because they know they can do it.
Yeah, one thing we didn't see, and you go back to 40 years ago, 30 years ago, one thing we didn't see is multi-club ownership. That's now something that's normal in football. Liverpool owners are trying to buy Getafe for 100 million. I'm
not sure that's right, you know. I'm not sure
in terms of not having it 40 years ago.
Maybe not as prevalent as it is now. And obviously the first example of that was really ENIC. And what they did with Rangers and Celtic. But you go back to multi-club ownership, goes back to the 1920s. You can see people have had involvements in different situations in different football clubs, and also in American sports more than this model. The irony of it is that multi-club ownership is a commercial reality. And the reasons why it's there is because the new ownership, as I said to you yesterday, the new ownership models have overtaken the rules, because the rules are not fit for purpose anymore, because there's a new sophisticated way of thinking. Like APT, Man City drove a coach and horses for the associated party transactions rules that the Premier League had drawn up, because they've got better lawyers, more money, and better sophisticated thinking. And so multi-club ownership exists because people say, if you don't want it, why don't you just outlaw it? Because the new owners want it. And they've got more control, influence and money than the governance of the game. And so they'll push it through. They'll sue FIFA, or in this instance UEFA, or the Premier League if they're not allowed to do certain things, because they want it for their own reasons, whether it's because the Saudis want influence for a variety of different countries, or because John Textor thinks it's a way to own football clubs to cross-pollinate and develop youth and be able to make money go around in a circle. They want it, and that's why it's there.
Very quickly, is it a good or bad thing?
I think it's neither. I think it operates in its own individual space, and it's unique to the circumstances which you wish to deploy it. I think there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it if you can find a way to enshrine the integrity of the sport where it isn't compromised by one side wanting to do better in a competition than the other for different reasons and sporting merit.
Yeah, one thing we do see is multi-club ownership. Sorry, I know we need to go break, but one thing we do see is multi-club ownership with clubs in different countries. Will it be a problem if we have multi-club ownership with clubs? Say it's a club in the Premier League and a club in the Championship.
I suppose eventually, if the club in the Championship get into the Premier,
I just wonder if the Premier League or the EFL can stop it.
But you know, we look at things in a way where the transparency, the opaqueness of something. People are doing deals left, right, and centre. Ownership models are being. Look at the ownership of Chelsea, with due respect to Chelsea, and look at the funding of that and where that money's come from. A lot of it's Middle Eastern money, so there's no surprise that all of a sudden Chelsea players get offloaded into the Saudi Arabian leagues, and PSR gets circumvented.
João Felix.
Relationships being done between football clubs. We watch how Lyon did business with Nottingham Forest and some of those transfers. How did Marinos and Textor get on? So there's lots of different moving parts that make you curious as to how things work. Once upon a time, there was an allegation, and I couched this carefully, that Cruz Academy was funded by Liverpool.
No comment.
And all their players ended up at Liverpool.
Danny Murphy. All right, up next, we're going to be speaking to Sean Martin from BetMGM and discuss how the Premier League summer series could be scrapped.
James Trafford says he always knew he'd return to Man City after his move back to the Etihad was confirmed. Burnley say it's a record figure for a British goalkeeper, claiming it's £31 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. Well, Trafford spent 2 years at Turf Moor, having signed from City for £19 million. Well, another English goalkeeper is also on the move. talkSPORT understands Aaron Ramsdale has agreed to join Newcastle. The Magpies will pay Southampton an initial £4 million loan fee, and there's an option to buy next summer. Well, despite Ramsdale getting relegated from the Premier League 3 times before turning 27, Alex Crook and Alan Brazil both reckon it's a smart acquisition.
I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a brilliant character. I think once he gets in that team, he will build up a bond with the Newcastle fans, and they will grow to love him.
I'm with you.
I think this could be a really good signing.
Do you know who loves him? Ray Parlour loves him. He's a great guy and a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
I'm with you.
At Man United, they've honed in on Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins as their 2 targets up front. Ben Jacobs has told talkSPORT why the Villa man is being considered by the top brass at Old Trafford.
I'm told is a deal that's been put forwards by Ruben Amorim and is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
I would love you to hear the conversations we're having with Martin O'Neill and Simon Jordan about Nottingham Forest in the late 70s, and almost bringing a glint to your eye, just talking to us about that team that came up in 77, won the league in 78, European champions a year later. Incredible. We should hear more about this.
What?
We should hear more of these stories.
Well, you're too young, I must admit, and Simon only be a kid really when we were at our peak. We had a really great team. We had a really great side. Obviously, the manager that we had was sensational, one of the great managers of all time. I think definitely the most charismatic manager has been in the British game, and in any conversation to be the best for what he did, not just with us at Nottingham Forest, but also what he did at Derby County some years earlier. Phenomenal manager, but his personality was so big. You were just talking about whether the club had been a group of misfits. Well, I don't think that you could have Peter Shilton, one of the best goalkeepers in Europe at the time, Viv Anderson, fullback, magnificent, Tony Woodcock, John Robertson, Trevor Francis, first £1 million player, Archie Gemmill, great player, Ian Boyer, the most underrated footballer in Britain at the time, and Peter, Tony Woodcock and Peter With, who was a brilliant centre. These players were all great players, Gary Burrells and John McGovern, players that, we had a really, really great side, but because the manager was on Michael Parkinson's show every 2 weeks, seemingly, he was
I love the story of Birtles being thrown off the bus. Because Clough tells Gary Birtles peeing and whining all the way, and Clough, you're going on an overseas tour, aren't you? And Birtles is moaning at the back of the bus, and all of a sudden Cloughie stops the bus somewhere at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and goes, "Get off, Birtles."
And he got off.
Got off the bus.
And he got off
the bus.
And kicked right home.
Get it.
See, those are the type of stories that our listeners and viewers want more from Martin about, and Simon.
No, from him, mate.
And Simon a bit later. All right, it's time now to catch up on the odds thanks to BetMGM.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+ gambleaware.org.
So I was about to say, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Sean Martin, but when I said it yesterday, I got some stick from Simon, so I'm happy to be joined by Sean Martin from BetMGM to look at today's top sporting events and discuss the latest odds as well. Sean, we know you're a big Celtic fan, massive Celtic fan, but Rangers are back in Champions League action tonight, currently leading Panathinaikos 2-0. Russell Martin doing a good job so far.
Well, exactly. I'm a big Celtic fan, so I was about to say good morning to the two mere mortals in the studio and hello to the great man on your left. Rangers 2-0 up from the first leg away in Athens tonight. Panathinaikos missed a few big chances and had a player sent off last week, but it was a big win for Russell Martin regardless. Question is, can he see it out? The odds suggest that Panathinaikos will win the game but not the tie. They're 8-11 favourites to win in 90. Rangers over 3-1, yet to qualify it's very much the inverse. Panathinaikos almost 3-1, Rangers 6-25. Simon, I heard you briefly mentioning Russell Martin yesterday, his style of play, how he has to adapt, that kind of thing. Big, tall and strong seems to be the common theme in the players that he's signed so far this summer, so I'm thinking maybe that's a sign both of the 49ers influence, but also maybe that he is going to change his outlook slightly despite what he intimates. What would you think?
Yeah, we're going to have a little conversation about Russell Martin a bit later, but he might have to, and you said this, didn't you, yesterday, adapt his style a little bit. You can stick to your principles, as he did at Southampton, which didn't help, but he's going to have to adapt his style. Rangers aren't going to accept you playing nice football and losing. They just have to get closer to Celtic.
Well, he's better equipped to answer that question than me because obviously he's managed in Scotland. But, I mean, Rangers can play a certain style for most of the time because they're playing against inferior opposition. It's when they play against the better opposition in Europe and maybe against Celtic that they're going to have to potentially pivot off the ideological position that maybe we believe Russell Martin has. I don't know what you think, Martin.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a principle. I think I've said this umpteen times. It's probably worth repeating. Absolutely not. But if you feel as if that you can make adjustments, and that doesn't mean that you've relinquished your principles. You haven't done that there. You've tweaked them according to what is happening. And if you just, let's say you had a style of play and it is playing out from the back and you are leaking goals because the players are incapable of doing that, you've got to have a word with yourself. You've got to go in and have a bit of quiet introspection and say, is this happening? I'm not so sure. I might have to change that. I might have to kick it longer, just once or twice, and still not be called a Luddite. Go on and do these particular things. So I have no problem with that. Now, people make adjustments. Alex Ferguson, one of the greatest managers of all time, started to make adjustments in his career, and it happens. And all you have to listen now. Roy Keane has told me a number of stories. Sometimes they kicked it long. They didn't always play it out from the back. I know it seemed to be a new fad, but they didn't. They kicked it long and they chased it. Brian Clough, we had a really great side. Boys who could play the ball. I've seen him coming at half-time and telling us in a real fit of pique, he said, I'll tell you what you do. You kick that ball as high and as long as you want to do. Now, whether he actually genuinely meant it or not is a different thing, but he just wanted to show his anger at the way we had been playing. It's a game. How you win the match is obviously very, very important. It's getting back to the point. Rangers and Celtic need to win football matches. That's it. And then what you see, if you are playing pure football and winning like Barcelona did, it's an absolute joy. How many Barcelonas are there in world football, never mind anything else? So at the end of it all, win the football match is the most important thing. That is a manager, and then everything else follows.
Let's switch gears. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I totally get both of you. There's also the argument, as you mentioned there, Ade, that it maybe never worked with a relegation-threatened team like Southampton in the Premier League. But as Simon says, I mean, the attack-minded style of play at Ibrox actually would make a lot of sense, given that they'll dominate most of the games up there. Ange Postecoglou, for instance, great domestic success here recently, sticking to that overwhelming attacking style. Russell Martin's predecessor at Ibrox, Philippe Clement, probably the opposite, very much set up to play against teams that were better than Rangers. They're better than 11 of the 12 teams that they play in Scotland. Didn't really work that way. And Martin, when you came to us in 2000, it was a relatively similar challenge in the sense that you faced overhauling a dominant Rangers side. We'd won one title in 12 seasons. You'd won loads of trophies as a player and a manager before coming to us, of course, so no further comparisons there. But it is a similar challenge that Russell Martin's got to overcome, isn't it?
It's true, absolutely. If I had realised how strong Rangers were in the year 2000, I would have stayed at Leicester. They had a brilliant team, no question about it. So, but I signed some decent players. I inherited some really good players, and it was a matter of trying to get a bit of confidence again. Confidence only can come by winning football matches, and that's what you have to do. Then you can develop your style, whatever. I have got absolutely no problem at all with any manager having a philosophy to play the game, not at all. But if as I say, I did something a couple of months ago. I was speaking to some young coaches and asking about my experiences in the game. And I said to them, they will all have different approaches to it. No two coaches will coach in the same manner. They all will. The most important thing is win the football matches. You win. Fairly decent chance. If you win on a Saturday, you might be still on the job on a Monday. But winning the football games is the most important thing. But there are ways to win football matches. And if you have the players, isn't it a grand spectacle to be able to go? John Robertson, my assistant at Celtic and at Leicester and at Aston Villa, and one of the great players, most underrated player as well too, Scottish player, fell out of love with the game in some aspect. He did. But what he did do, he said he always tuned in to watch Barcelona play because he was absolutely in love with Messi and what he could do and what those players, Iniesta and Xavi, could do. So that was lovely to hear that he still had that. Fell out of love with the game, but wanted to see Barcelona play. Now, what I'm saying to you is this here, that Barcelona were capable of winning. They could do the both. They could play beautiful football we all wanted to watch. And Manchester City have played great football as well too, and were winning. And so there's nothing wrong with it. But winning, if you picked up the phone now and spoke to Pep Guardiola, you'd still say that winning is still the most important thing.
There you go. Sean just wanted to come on to ask you a question, by the way. You don't normally have Sean on.
Sorry, Sean.
No. You've made his year. You've made his year. Sean, we had David Ade on yesterday. Let's switch gears and talk boxing for a second. Obviously, big fights for both him and Dillian White, August 16th. How did the odds look for them?
Yeah, so just a couple of weeks out from Moses Itoma versus Dillian White, and since we mentioned Itoma in relation to Usyk last week, Simon, I figured let's check in on the odds for the actual fight that he has. Itoma's fourth fight in Riyadh to White's first, and he's heavy favourite, 1-10 to win the fight. White is now 7-1, even specifically to win by stoppage. Itoma's 6-25, so very short. White 9-1 for the same, if anyone fancies a puncher's chance. And to be fair, with White, you really do just never know. He's always capable of creating danger. He's certainly got the experience. Also in the heavyweight division that night, as you say, David Adeleye, almost 5-1 to beat Filip Hrgovic. But as you guys mentioned yesterday, the potential impact that beating him could have for Adeleye is very intriguing. Hrgovic WBO number 2, Itoma number 1, Parker the interim champ. So yeah, 5-1. But the rewards for Adeleye for a win could be so much greater. So who knows, guys? Joe Joyce took Hrgovic the distance last time. Do you rate Adelaye's chance better than 5-1, or is it really that difficult an ask?
It sounds wide, doesn't it? 5-1, Adeleye.
I think it's a fascinating fight because if you base the performance of David against Jamie TKV or Fabio Wardley, he's in a world of trouble with Filip Hrgovic. But if you base it upon what they think they can get from him and what Adam Booth is as a trainer, someone's going to get knocked out in this fight, and it's going to be interesting. And Spencer Oliver was down the gym with them yesterday saying it's remarkable. He'd forgotten how hard heavyweights hit. I think he went on the pads with David, and he said he looks sharp. He's hitting hard. And Hrgovic I think is there to be beaten.
Yeah,
he's there to be beaten.
Yeah. Second day, Glorious Goodwood. What can we expect from that?
Yep, day 2, and today sees Rosalian back in the Sussex Stakes after missing it last year, but it's Field of Gold who's the favourite for that one at 3:05. He's a horse our racing ambassador Meg Nichols says, and I quote, has it all, and he's sitting at 1-3 favourite at the moment. That's only going to get shorter. But Meg's nap for the day is actually Sudo at 4-1 in the first for Roger Varian. She's really keen on that one, and they won by 7 lengths at Epsom earlier in the month. That one's first off at 1, and all Meg's tips for Goodwood and beyond are on the blog on our BetMGM website. Anyone looking for any further insight this week, guys.
Top man, Sean, as always, fantastic stuff. Great. That was a look at the latest odds, all thanks to BetMGM. Just visit betmgm.co.uk, or you can download the app 18+ at begambleaware.org. You are listening to Oladipo. I nearly forgot my own surname now. Oladipo, Jordan, and O'Neill on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Up next, we're going to discuss how the Premier League Summer Series. Did you even know about this? It's been called a Summer Series, the friendlies in America. Should it be scrapped?
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+ gambleaware.org.
Good morning. You are listening to Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill. We are going to talk about the Premier League potentially scrapping their summer series. I think they should. We'll discuss why. But first, let's get an update from the Moose watching Yokohama Marinos versus Liverpool. Have Liverpool scored yet?
No, 20 minutes gone, Yokohama 0, Liverpool 0, but Liverpool have come mighty close. Cody Gakpo, left-hand side of the penalty area, onto his right foot, curling effort low, came back off the post from about 12 yards out. Got to say, the pitch looks like the sort of pitch Martin used to play on at the City Ground in the late 70s and early 80s. It's not brilliant, the pitch over in Japan. But Liverpool doing okay so far, but you do feel like they do need a goal to sort of settle them down a bit. Yokohama 0, Liverpool 0.
Thank you, the Moose. Hopefully Liverpool do score in that one to get Liverpool fans excited for the season upcoming. Let's talk about pre-season games. I want to specifically focus on the Premier League Summer Series. It's a US-based Summer Series tournament. Right now, over in America, is Manchester United, West Ham, Bournemouth and Everton. What did you make of these pre-season tours that used to take teams all around the world? And I mean, as a manager, does it get annoying having to travel thousands and thousands of miles just to play the same team you could have played 100 miles away?
I loved it.
Did you really?
I did. I absolutely loved it. As a manager, I loved it because I wanted the games, particularly going to America. I loved it. When I was manager of Celtic, we played Manchester United in Seattle, a big crowd, and we also played them the following year in Philadelphia, and those games were great. And it was so selfish because I loved it. And I wanted to go there, and I couldn't care less whether the players wanted to go or not because I loved it. And the great thing about for some pre-season games, of course, yeah, selfish man. And the thing I loved about it is that when you've settled, my first season at Celtic, I don't know the players at all, so I have to try and get to them. So the games, or even the pre-season games, become really important for me. I'm trying to get some sort of judgment on players that I didn't really know. They likewise in me. But when you've settled into a football club and you know what the players are capable of doing, other than trying to get a few extra players in pre-season, travelling off to America, it's lovely because it's really great. I can enjoy myself. There's no real pressure on. Doesn't really matter too much about the results. You want to play well, of course. I loved it, and that's really selfish. As a player, we did a trip. We did this year. Sorry. Very briefly, we won the European Cup in 1980. Our pre-season, we started in Vancouver, then down to Miami, then to Bogota in Colombia, then off to Quito in Ecuador, which we didn't do. We didn't do that one. Came back, travelled up to Toronto. Came back for a tournament against Bayern Munich in those. And we only played about 97 games in 2 weeks. So that was hectic. And their manager, Mr. Clough, didn't come with the trip. So we were really irritated because it was of no benefit to us and it didn't work out. So that I'm trying to talk about the difference of travelling around the world pre-season as a player and as a manager. But I loved it. And any player who can start to complain to me about we were travelling too far got short shrift.
Yeah. You know? Now, this summer series in the US, the inaugural one, and it first happened 2 years ago, made a net loss of £5.4 million. This year's one is also expected to lose money. You just don't make as much money from pre-season tours anymore, Simon. I mean, I guess for clubs, it grows their brand, especially in America. If you're Manchester United, you're known all over the world, so it doesn't necessarily matter as much. But if you're Bournemouth, West Ham and Everton, it's massive to go to America. But if there's no money being made, what's the point?
I don't know how the structure of this deal is put together. I don't know who's funding it and how the funding is being put into place. I mean, I'm assuming the
Premier League are funding it,
right? But I'm assuming the clubs are paid to be there. So whether in fact that the Premier League is subsidising some of these losses because they believe that it's a sprat to catch a mackerel. Forget about the terrestrial deals in this country in terms of the broadcasters that we have now, the Skies of the world that might even not be able to afford to be at the table at the next raft of negotiations. Look at the overseas rights. This is where they need to be focused on because the overseas rights now have caught up with the domestic rights. Once upon a time, it was 80%, 90%, 100% of the TV revenues came from Sky, Setanta, BT Sport, whoever it was at the time, right? And that is now changed, so it's now 50-50. Then they're having to give more product to get to that point now. They're trying to get the same revenues in. They're giving 215 games or 90% of the entire fixture list. But the actual percentage of revenue coming from the overseas money is now on a par with the domestic money, and it will get bigger and bigger and bigger. If you look at the fact that the IMG, which were doing the overseas content, has now been taken away. That contract's been taken away from IMG, brought into the Premier League, and the Premier League are now doing that model of thing. So you can see the direction of travel. It may land in a space that I said 7 years ago, which is the Premier League being its own Netflix of football and producing its own outcomes and dwarfing the content that it gets now. In order to do that, it needs to put seed capital in there, which is make sure that people clearly understand that the Premier League is the best game in town, is the best domestic league in world football, and export it to the world and make sure that it does it successfully. And that's why we have to be very careful what we do with the Premier League with independent regulation and governance and redistribution of money, because you have an absolute product that the nation should be proud of, because it's one of our best exports, i.e. English football around the world. So losing a few quid on sending teams out to America or wherever they're going to play against the potential benefits of it far and away exceed any small-minded thinking about, there's a few quid not going where it needed to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. But just to let you know that in my time when we went to America in those games, we weren't playing in competitions. There wasn't a competition. We were actually playing friendly matches as such. But because of the size, I suppose really, if you think about Manchester United and Manchester United in Seattle, next one up from Portland, where they were, where they had their sponsorship and things like this here, and Celtic, of course, big diaspora. So those games were going to attract big crowds. That was it. We wouldn't have made an absolute fortune in it because maybe make our own travel, but the experiences of those particular games was not in, as we say, this competition. These were friendly matches.
Has then, in saying that, right, because this is now competition, isn't it? Has the Club World Cup now completely changed the idea of pre-season friendlies or post-season friendlies, if you could call them? Because the Club World Cup comes with big money. It is a real competition, and it's something that starts before the season begins. I mean, could we see...
Be fearful what the Club World Cup means. Be fearful. It's the back door to a Super League, is what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That, isn't it?
Well, a back door to a domestic Super League, not a cup competition. And when you look at that and say the reality of the Saudi money behind it and how that's being funded and what's going to come as a result of it, watch that space. But no, I don't think it. I think a competition that runs every 4 years isn't going to necessarily just change the idea of fixtures for clubs around the globe, because there's only 2 teams from England that are playing in that competition. So it's also, watch the space in terms of the domestic games being exported to countries like America and the idea that we want to do it. There will be games played in America. There will be English teams playing in America.
I don't think there'll be a Premier League game in America.
And I don't think there needs to be. I think there needs to be for La Liga because they can't keep pace with the powerhouse of the Premier League. There needs to be for the Bundesliga because they can't keep pace with the domestic and the overseas rights of the Premier League. So they need to sell their souls to get more revenue to meet the expectations of their clubs against the competitivity of the teams they're playing in from England. But we don't need to export our games over there. We need to perhaps set a tournament up there that has some domestic benefit, whether it's a playoff game of some shape or description that gets you into
FA Cup
Europe.
game?
No, not that. Not taking and bastardising a very happy and well set competition that's in this country and exporting it to the US. But there is a lot of opportunity. But the interesting thing is that the governance stopped it from happening. Relevant Sports were the media agency that were trying to get domestic games, and FIFA's regulations stopped it. That has now been overturned, because if you remember, Barcelona was supposed to play Gijón in Getafe in America, and it was stopped by governance, and that's now been overturned, which is why you'll see a Spanish game happen over there. I don't think we'll see a Premier League game happen, but we will see English teams play a competitive game of a tournament or an outcome that has some meaning to it, rather than just a pre-season tour.
Yeah, no, I do wonder if Chelsea winning the Club World Cup has opened that door up even bigger. Right, seeing an English team over there and winning.
Well, you got this big thing about American ownership. Watch it. I think there'll be a Premier League 2, and I think that there'll be a challenge when you've got more American ownership in the division than you've got other ownership, and you can start voting down things like relegation.
Well, up next, we're going to be looking at some interesting comments from both Marco Silva and Oliver Glasner whilst they're on their respective pre-season tours.
James Trafford says he always knew he'd return to Man City after his move back to the Etihad was confirmed. Burnley say it's a record figure for a British goalkeeper, claiming it's £31 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. Well, Trafford spent 2 years at Turf Moor, having signed from City for £19 million. Well, another English goalkeeper is also on the move. talkSPORT understands Aaron Ramsdale has agreed to join Newcastle. The Magpies will pay Southampton an initial £4 million loan fee, and there's an option to buy next summer. Well, despite Ramsdale getting relegated from the Premier League 3 times before turning 27, Alex Crook and Alan Brazil both reckon it's a smart acquisition.
The reaction from Newcastle fans is mixed, I think, on Aaron Ramsdale. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a brilliant character. I think once he gets in that team, he will build up a bond with the Newcastle fans, and they will grow to love him.
I'm with you.
I think this could be a really good signing.
Do you know who loves him? Ray Parlour loves him. He's a great guy and a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
I'm with you.
At Man United, they've honed in on Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins as their 2 targets up front. Ben Jacobs has told talkSPORT why the Villa man is being considered by the top brass at Old Trafford.
Is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now. Again, the fee there is £60 million or 70 million euros if they just met the asking price today. But some Manchester United sources feel that if Villa find a replacement, their not-for-sale stance or their high price may drop.
Well, talkSPORT also understands another forward, Daniel Ndoye, has now completed his move from Bologna to Nottingham Forest. And if you thought the Test series between England and India was already a bit aggy, it's just gone to another level. This time, the row was between India's head coach Gautam Gambhir and the Oval's head groundsman Lee Fortis. This after Fortis asked the India squad to move away from the main square while practising. Gambhir's reply was, "You're just a groundsman, don't tell us what to do." Oh, you're odd. There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Brentford and Mbeumo's had his say. We're going to hear from the new Manchester United striker. This is Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill. On Brentford and Mbeumo, good signing, Martin, do you think, for Manchester United?
Brilliant.
Yeah? Yeah.
Short and sharp.
Short and sharp. I like it. I mean, all your answers have been long this afternoon, and now all of a sudden, go past 12 o'clock and your answers are short and sharp. All right, Marco Silva's been speaking to the media, and he said that foreign investors are causing British culture to disappear, which we've all tried to dissect here during the break. His exact words were this: coaches used to be more resilient to negative results. With foreign investors, that British culture is starting to disappear and coaches are less resilient. Martin, your thoughts on that? What does he mean by that?
Well, I'm not sure, first of all, he's talking about, I assume he's talking about a British resilience to results. And that because there are so many foreign managers now, so many foreign owners, and I think Silva's from Portugal himself, which would probably constitute being a foreign manager. I think what he's saying.
Are they trigger happy? Are the foreign owners a lot more trigger happy than the British owners?
I think he's trying to pay a compliment to resilience of yesteryear. That, in other words, sort of a British mentality that
roll up your sleeves.
You can forget about some noise that's happening here, and that you can still get on with it. I don't think that negative results. I think if you look at the number of managers and the tenure of them and the length of time that they're managing, it doesn't matter what league it's in. It's just there, as Simon used the word intolerance. I think that's probably it.
I almost feel like that's changed across the board. I don't think that's a British
right,
thing.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. So, but I think what he's trying to say is, and I didn't hear him saying it, so I don't know the context. But from my take on it, I think what he's trying to say is that there's a little Britishness leaving the game, which he actually is a wee bit disturbed about, which is not a bad thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to read it in the way that he said it, or by the way this quote's being presented to us, then if you're Eddie Howe and David Moyes, you'd be saying, excuse me?
Why?
Well, because I think I have perfect resilience to negative results. I take both imposters the same way. I accept it in a Rudyard Kipling mentality that I can deal with loss and winning in an equal measure. So if I'm at David Moyes and Eddie Howe saying as a British manager, I'd say, what are you talking about? Well, I'm not as strong as guys that went before me. I don't know what he's referring to. If he's referring to the lack of resilience or the ability to be insulated from bad form or bad runs, and managers have been given more time and more tolerance, and foreign owners don't do that, well, I could point him at, not Martin will like this one, but I could point him at Marinos and his preparedness to stay with Steve Cooper when everyone thought that Steve Cooper was going to be hounded out of the door. You can look at, I think managers...
What about culture in the boardroom? Like British culture within the boardroom. You were an owner, you've had British owners before. Is it different from foreign owners in the boardroom?
I mean, I think it's less and less of a British culture in the boardroom, simply because you're having more foreign managers, foreign owners in boardrooms. Simon's
it's a global
far better than
it's a global. I mean, it depends what you're talking about. Culture. I mean, some of the boardrooms I went into, which was full of English directors, I'd rather not go in. I'd rather shoot myself in the face than be in there. And much more happier being in the company of Americans that have a far more positive, forward-thinking attitude, rather than the old school Thai brigade that wanted to keep itself in jobs. I mean, we talk about the culture of resilience. I mean, Doug Ellis fired people for fun. He was called Deadly Doug Ellis at Aston Villa. So this culture of football managers having to be more resilient. We are in a society where resilience is a debate that happens every single day. It's not unique to football. I do believe that we have to, challenge ourselves and push through adversity. But the idea that Marco Silva is the right voice to carry that, being a person from overseas and himself who, created situations at Watford where his resilience to the opportunity that he was given could come into play, because he was there for 5 minutes and all of a sudden he wanted to go out the door when someone knocked on the door for him. I've warmed much to Marco Silva. I thought he was a treacherous hound in the way that he behaved with Watford. He was given an opportunity.
Speak your mind, Simon.
Well, I do. And I thought he behaved very poorly. And he went to Everton, got his outcome at the end. But I now think that this is a more mature, wiser manager, like we all are as men. When we get older, we get wiser, we make mistakes and we don't repeat them, or we do different ones. And I think he's a very, very good manager. I think the job he's done at Fulham has been first class, don't you, Martin?
Yeah, I do. I also think that there is a feeling that that foreign managers coming into the game can teach the British how to play the game. I think there was that feeling. Do you remember Alex Ferguson talking about Wenger when he stepped in? First of all, he's teaching us how to play our own game. But I think there, again, I might have picked it up wrongly, but from reading what he said without finding the intonation of what he said, I thought it was seemingly a backhanded compliment to Britishness and. In one aspect, and the very fact that now that you're having so many foreign managers and so many foreign owners in the game, that resilience is being lost a little bit. I think that's something that foreign managers in particular admired about the British game quite some time ago.
The only thing I would caveat that with is, we had the 70s and 80s where English football was in the toilet, and we had thinking like Charles Hughes thinking, in terms of the way the English game was being played, and strong, fit boys booting the ball from one end of the pitch to the other. And it's interesting to see that our domestic league has become so powerful when 90% of its composition isn't English players. And this idea that once upon a time idiot football club owners like me employed foreign managers or bought foreign players because they were cheaper and easier to manage, we have to look at the reality of now that football is entirely owned by foreign investors, foreign owners, foreign managers, foreign coaches, foreign sporting directors, foreign players. And every aspect of the game is now about seemingly overseas players. And the only thing English about the English Premier League is its geography.
Most of those points I totally agree with Simon. The one thing I didn't think that in the 70s that the English game was in the toilet, because
internationally we couldn't qualify for World Cup tournaments.
But I'm talking club level. I'm talking about that Liverpool dominating European football with top quality players, as good a players as you'll find in European football.
Fair enough.
And in the world
but
football.
In terms of the appeal
and
to
Aston
the fans,
Villa and Nottingham Forest and teams like that.
What it is now. Another foreign manager's had he say, and we're talking about Oliver Glasner now, manager of your former team. He said, even though all the players are still here. We haven't made the most of the transfer window so far. I was promised that we would be more active and bring in new players earlier this year. As of now, I have 17 outfield players. I hope we don't lose any more. If that happens and we get 4 new ones on deadline day like last year, another full start is possible. Obviously, Crystal Palace did start bad last season, picked it up and were fantastic towards the back end of last season. 17 outfield players for a team that wants to play European football, will play European football, just isn't enough.
No, of course it's not. But I also think that I'm not surprised this is coming, because I think Glasner didn't feel he got something. He's a very good manager.
Very, very
good. Palace did very well to get him. And of course they started poorly last year. Mateta was rested as a result of his exploits in the Olympics. So ultimately they didn't start the season with Mateta. So he was a key component of some of their successes. They had to deal with the loss of Anderson as a centre-back, the loss of Elise, and the absence of Eze because he wasn't fit. And I think that there was a support mechanism that he didn't think he got last year. And I had envisaged and spoken to various people, and I'm not going to betray any confidences, that there would be a situation where Glasner was going to be a sought-after commodity.
Yeah.
And if he didn't get precisely what he wanted from Palace, having got them into Europe, there was going to be a real challenge. And so Parish and his cohorts are going to have to pony up some proper resources for Glasner now, because he might have sucked it up last year and got on with the reality of what they didn't spend last year. He ain't going to do it this year, because he'll think they could have done Condeep in Europa. He'll certainly think they can win the European Conference League, and he'll want the resources to do it. So now he is tub thumping, and now he's making sure that everybody understands that he's not happy, and he thinks he should be having these things. And by the way, and it's one of those few instances I will allow dispensation for a manager to speak this way, I think he's right.
He is absolutely right.
And surely he wants his players before the start of the season. And look, I mean, ultimately they could sign players into the season, but if you're a manager, you want a pre-season with your team so you can get going straight away.
Yeah, of course. To use Simon's term, he did suck it up last year. He did absolutely. Probably one of those aspects, delighted to get the job. And he's proved his worth now. They've gone and they've won a trophy, the FA Cup, first time in their history. And he will feel, exactly. Now, listen, I did suck it up last year. Now you've got to back me. I am a commodity. I'm now worth something. That's not the reason. I still love Crystal Palace. I want to stay there, but I don't want to start the season.
Give me a reason to stay.
I don't exactly. I don't want to stay here with 17 players. At the end of the day,
how ambitious can Crystal Palace be, though? I mean, when people are knocking on your door for Mateta and Eze, and we saw it, Elise go.
But it's going to happen. That's always happens. It does, and then you have a chance again to refresh and get on with it. There's no better man to know about Crystal Palace than Philip sitting beside me here at the end. Crystal Palace is a big football club. I'm not surprised he tried to or bought the club. It's what happens, as he said. Buying the club is the easiest. Running it's the hard of it. But Crystal Palace is a big football club. And Glasner's done very, very well.
Yes.
But it's also Crystal Palace, in that sense, in terms of the supporters, have done well with him as well too.
Indeed.
He's very, very popular, very popular indeed, and it's great to see that there. And he's got every right to be popular because of what he did last season.
Because he wins football matches.
Now he's looking. He's looking for that backing.
I mean, I would imagine the conversation is very simple if I'm in Glasner's situation, and let's assume there's an element of understanding that this is like their conversation. I sucked it up last year, and I accepted the circumstances, and I had reticence about it, but I got on with it. I produced you an outcome. We're in Europe. We won an FA Cup. I really need to see £100 million worth of transfers coming into this football club, as well as retaining what I've currently got. Otherwise, you're going to force me into a situation where I have to look elsewhere. That's the kind of conversations I would imagine that would have been happening.
Or force me into a situation where I'm telling the media, which is already happening.
Yeah.
All right, listen. Oh, go on. No.
That's as if he's conjured up a situation. He's only telling you what it is. He's got 17 players, and he might as well let people know about it.
Yeah, indeed. All right, you're listening to
done exactly the same.
And O'Neill on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. Up next, we're going to be looking ahead to the latest regarding Johan Vissa. Remember, it looks like he wants away from Brentford, and discuss Brentford and Mbeumo's comments that he's joined Manchester United for the club project.
10k for Coldplay.
Good afternoon, you're listening to Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and the great Martin O'Neill. Remember, we've got a competition to win 10 grand and a huge VIP night out at Wembley for Coldplay, which ends on Monday. That's right, we're giving you the chance to win 6 tickets in a private box for you and your mates, 22nd of August. Full hospitality plus, as I said, we're chucking 10 grand, spending money as well, completely tax-free. Here's how to enter. Remember, it is 18 plus UK, excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, simply text the word WIN to 83338 by the 4th of August at 11 p.m. and you're in the draw. Texts do cost £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or you can post your name and number to Coldplay competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2, 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 7th of August. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. All right, let's go to the Moose. Remember, Liverpool in action against Yokohama Marinos. As we left it, it was 0-0. Surely they've scored.
No, half-time is still Yokohama 0, Liverpool 0. Cody Gakpo curled an early effort back off the post. Salah then and Bradley set up Ekitike with a cheeky back heel smuggled away for a corner. Salah's actually been really good going forward on a very difficult pitch, setting through Gakpo and Szoboszlai. Neither could take the opportunity. At the back, though, Liverpool have been really open and were caught out once. David with a header that was saved brilliantly by Mamashvili, diving away to his left-hand side, tip it round the post. Generally, Virgil van Dijk has dealt with everything at the back, but Liverpool going forward, as I say, on a very difficult pitch, yet to score. Half-time, Yokohama 0, Liverpool 0.
I promise goals. There will be goals in the second half. Maybe I shouldn't promise.
So bad, aren't they?
Yeah, shouldn't promise goals. Let's talk Yohan Wissa. Newcastle interested. According to all the papers, he hasn't turned up for training. We are hearing that he's expected to return to training for Brentford this week. 19 goals in the Premier League this season, 28 years of age. What's a Yohan Wissa worth in today's market? Newcastle, we believe, have rejected or put in a bid of 25 million, which was immediately rejected by Brentford. Obviously, this is a team that's lost its manager in Brentford and Mbeumo. They have to keep him, but surely, as you guys always tell me, everyone has a price.
Well, he's worth more than 25 million.
He certainly
in
is.
Today's prices.
Yeah,
absolutely, no question about that. There, he's a very, very fine footballer. He's been excellent in the last couple of seasons, and so 25 million pounds in today's money is ridiculously low.
Yeah, if you Keith Andrews, Simon, I mean, you can't have many more. Huh? Martin's best friend. Yeah, that story's still to come. You can't have many more leave the club, can you? I mean, I think Brentford will struggle.
He can't. He's not going to be able to control that to some extent. Certainly, you're not entertaining an offer at £25 million, irrespective of how much the player jumps up and down and turns into a Tasmanian devil. He won't be going. And unless you get a proper offer, which is probably in excess of £40 million, it's not a conversation, because A, you can't redeploy it anywhere else because you're not going to get much for that money anyway yourself, unless you're going to delve down and really put yourself at risk, because we already know there's a possibility that Brentford are pushing the envelope with not only losing a manager, replacing him with a manager that's yet to prove himself, may well have talked himself into a good job, but he's still got to prove himself. And this is the big league now. This is the big game. This is where the questions get asked, and not the punditry observations that one can make about things that they haven't actually done themselves. And then you've also got the loss of resource. When you've lost a captain to Arsenal, you've lost a very influential player, one of their best playmakers, and a chief contributor of goals and contributions and assists in the boy that's gone to Man United. If you lose your centre forward, now no one's irreplaceable, but you're making it more and more difficult for yourself. If these players are, disappearing out the door alongside the challenge of a new manager, irrespective of whether he's grown up inside that environment and been employed as Thomas Frank was as a result of a succession programme, you've still got challenges. And from that point of view, it's a real difficult time for Brentford. But they've got to, if the player now has decided that he is going, and Newcastle are doing to Brentford what they've done.
What they're getting upset about.
There is an irony. What goes around comes around, doesn't it?
It's massive. Let's hear from new Brentford manager Keith Andrews. This is what he had to say about Yohan Wissa.
Yohan, who's gone back to London, was Yohan's decision, with obviously speculation. I think it's pretty common knowledge that this club's interested in Yohan, not surprisingly. So Yohan felt it was the right thing for him to go back to London. I think it's pretty simple, really. He folds back into the group next week when we come back to training. He's training currently with Frank. at the moment at the training ground, training really well.
He would never have had anything like this situation, Keith Andrews, where players decided to pack up and go back home. How's he going to be able to deal with this?
Well, he would have experienced something like this here, I'm sure, in his playing days. But as a manager stepping into it, these, as Simon mentioned, these are difficult situations even for managers who have proved themselves or who are, who have been managing for some years. You do not want to lose your players. You're stepping into a new season, and you have expectation about you now. Brentford, remarkably, would be considered, a Premier League team now for what the previous manager has done for that football club, and so the expectation is.
What would
there.
you do in that situation? What would you do in that situation there? What would put aside even what would you do?
I would do exactly what I think. Right, I would say, very, very difficult to keep unhappy players. You try your best, first of all. You have a conversation with them to say, listen, we want you to stay at the football club. We'll try and improve your contract if that's really what you're looking for. If it's not what you're looking for and you want to go, here's a set price. Somebody makes it there. That's what it'll do. In the meantime, you'll have to be working furiously behind the scenes to try and get another player.
What am I missing here, Martin?
Right,
we had it with Victor Gyökeres, who decided, I'm going to stop playing football for Sporting Lisbon. We're having it with Isak, who's decided, I want to stop playing football for Newcastle. And now we're hearing Johan Vista decided to stop playing football for Brentford. Why can't these footballers just play football, train, and let their agents do the noise and all the handshaking behind them? Why can't they just concentrate on football? Why are they going on strike?
I agree with you, absolutely. But this is nothing new.
Who's telling them to do it?
The agents.
Of course. A player might want to go and try and improve himself. Then again, getting back to it, if that's the case. And I know I mentioned this on Monday in a similar situation I had with Gareth Barry. Gareth Barry was a brilliant player for me at Aston Villa. Great player before even I went to the football club, but did exceptionally well, got back into the England squad. And I had what I felt was a really good relationship with him. So I'm doing some punditry work for TV in 2008 or something, I guess here. I pick up a newspaper and I find out that Gareth Barry has wanted to leave to go to Liverpool, and that this is the first I knew about it, and that I was doing some punditry work and I should be back there to help him get to Liverpool. No, I didn't want him to get back to Liverpool. I wanted him to stay at the football club. And I kind of fell out with him big time. So what we did do, or what the chairman did, the owner, said, what do you want to do, man? I said, well, I'd like to keep him, but if he's unhappy, we have to put a price on it. And that's exactly what he did. Liverpool had bid some money for him. It wasn't enough. And Mr. Lerner said, that's £10 million. This is what we want for the player. He can go. Liverpool did not do that. They got as far as £8 million. The player became disenchanted, but with us to begin with, but more so with Liverpool, primarily because they didn't do the deal. They said they didn't have the money, and then a fortnight later signed Robbie Keane for £20 million. So what you had to do is get a disenchanted player back into the fold again, and Gareth Barry turned out to have, he had a number of great seasons before that, and he was absolutely fantastic. But that was in his character to come back, get the disappointment. And he went to Manchester City the following season. We got £12 million for him for the following season, and went on to win dozens and dozens of trophies.
It depends upon the culture of the football club as well. I mean, I make the point, and I will make it again, and I don't apologise for it, it's to the eternal discredit of the PFA that they don't condemn these sort of actions where players downing their tools, because it makes the PFA look like a one-dimensional beast, which in fact they are.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with it. I'm not saying that one-dimensional. I couldn't agree more with it.
They could do more.
Now, you've got the culture of what you're prepared to do with players and how they're prepared to understand their responsibility in the equation. You've just seen Marinos. I make the point again, and I make no apology for it. Morgan Gibbs-White, irrespective of whether he was agitating to go and how do you think people got to know of his release clause, let's have it right, but he still turned up for pre-season training, still got on with his job. He's now being portrayed as he was exemplary during that period of time. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for turning up and doing the basics, right? And this culture's crept into the game, and it's been creeping in for longer and longer. Player power becomes part of it, agents' influence becomes another, and the lack of fortitude in owners and their courage of their convictions to say to people, well, I'm going to concentrate your mind here. Whether you like it or not, we are stuck with one another. I got you for 3 years and you got me, and you don't want me for 3 years under the terms that you think you're going to get me.
And you were happy to choose me.
Right.
I didn't force you to choose me.
But it's a balancing act.
Can I tell you a story against myself?
Go on then, 30 seconds, go on.
Yeah, quickly, I can not tell a story in 30 seconds.
A minute, I'll give you a minute.
Okay, you'll give me a minute. I got left out of the team at Nottingham Forest in a game. I decided this is it. I'm not going to play anymore for the football club. I want to leave. But that was a totally different situation. I never really wanted to leave the football club, but I said I'm having it. And Clough said, "Don't you dare! You turn up for this game on the Saturday." I didn't turn up for the game on the Saturday.
Bit of a rebel, wasn't you?
To my eternal discredit. Well, the game was called off, but Brian Clough came over from Derby. We were going to go through Derby to play Stoke City at the time. He came to the City ground to see whether I had turned up in the bus or not. So I got done 2 weeks' wages, and I had it was ridiculous. However, totally different circumstance. I wanted to play for the football club rather than the other way around.
Well, a lot of these players do it for increase in wages as well, so we'll see how it plays out with this. One player that did leave Brentford was Brentford and Mbeumo. He's told the media why he joined Manchester United for the project. We'll explain on.
James Trafford says he always knew he'd return to Man City after his move back to the Etihad was confirmed. Burnley say it's a record figure for a British goalkeeper, claiming it's £31 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. Well, Trafford spent 2 years at Turf Moor, having signed from City for £19 million. Well, another English goalkeeper is also on the move. talkSPORT understands Aaron Ramsdale has agreed to join Newcastle. The Magpies will pay Southampton an initial £4 million loan fee, and there's an option to buy next summer. Well, despite Ramsdale getting relegated from the Premier League 3 times before turning 27, Alex Crook and Alan Brazil both reckon it's a smart acquisition.
I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a brilliant character. I think once he gets in that team, he will build up a bond with the Newcastle fans, and they will grow to love him.
I'm with you.
I think this could be a really good signing.
Do you know who loves him? Ray Parlour loves him. He's a great guy and a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
I'm with you.
At Man United, they've honed in on Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins as their 2 targets up front. Ben Jacobs has told talkSPORT why the Villa man is being considered by the top brass at Old Trafford.
I'm told is a deal that's been put forwards by Ruben Amorim and is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
afternoon, you're listening to Ade Oladipo alongside Simon Jordan and Martin O'Neill. Just gone 12:30 with you till 1 o'clock. Let's talk Brentford and Mbeumo, who had so many suitors after a fantastic season, I think it's fair to say, from Brentford. The likes of Tottenham were interested, Newcastle was certainly interested, but he's decided to make his new home in Manchester under Ruben Amorim and that project. This is what he had to say as to the reason why he chose Manchester United as opposed to the other teams. I spoke to some other managers because I wanted to hear their projects, but the Manchester United one was very good for me. United is a big club, it's a great opportunity, and I chose the project. Again, he says, I'm someone who likes a challenge. This is a very good project here and I wanted to be part of it. Project 4 times in a sentence. What is the project at Manchester United? Is it any different to the project at Spurs? Would it be any different to the project at Newcastle? Or is the pay packet just a lot bigger?
I don't think you would have to worry too much. If you're going to sign for Manchester United, you don't worry too much about a project. You're going to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. He's deserved the move as well too. He's a terrific footballer. I don't think he has to keep mentioning this project, you know. What is the project? To improve from last season? Well, they should be able to do that if they win one more game. And, you know, we mentioned this again on Monday. What is it, top 8 or whatever the case may be. Manchester United are Manchester United with a history of Sir Alex Ferguson, Matt Busby, all the great sides that they have had during their time, and project. You don't have to mention it. You sign for Manchester United because it's Manchester United.
Is that still a thing? Because it's Manchester United, the biggest club in the world. We understand it, but ultimately it's a team that's not in Europe.
It doesn't matter whether I'd say this idea. Everybody wants to go and play Champions League football. Sometimes they have to ask themselves. I don't even believe that footballers care about that as much as they say they do. They don't. They don't at all. Do you sign for Manchester? If you're given the chance to sign for Manchester United, you take it. You don't mention a word about a project. Listen, I'm sure it's just that sort of talk now at this moment. Maybe somebody has ingrained them with some sort of thought that there is a project here. The project for Manchester United is to improve.
Yeah.
Is to actually be competing at the very, very top level with Liverpool, Chelsea and the rest of it, and Arsenal in the not too distant future, like pretty well quickly.
Yeah. I guess the next question is, we'll only know at the end of the season whether or not he's chosen the right project.
Well, I mean,
but do you think he's going into something?
Sorry, Sam. I don't think that would matter. Manchester United, if they didn't improve at all, Mbeumo is still a very, very fine player, and he's still chosen.
But we have seen fine players go there in the last couple of years, and they've just vanished. It hasn't worked, and they've had to go and leave.
Well, maybe some of those fine players might not be as fine as Mbeumo.
Good shout. Yeah.
I mean, we're in the business of words, so it seems like it is a bit mean-spirited to talk about semantics, but it could have said vision.
Yeah,
the vision. He's bought into the vision of this particular manager. The interesting thing is about the lure of Manchester United, which is part of your question, and how it still pulls. Well, it will pull a player from Brentford, and because Man United still has the lustre, imagery, iconography, and feel of a football club that once upon a time bestrode English football, dominated the Premier League for the first 4 of its 5 years of existence. This is not the same Man United. It's got lots of different challenges in it, and from people that tell you it hasn't got any money, to the way the football team is playing, and the fact that they tell you they've got no culture inside this football club. I would suggest that they're not quite the same draw as they once were for elite footballers that are coming from elite football clubs. With all due respect to Brentford, you might not pull a player out of Bayern Munich or other football clubs quite as easily as Man United over other clubs in English football that are now achieving things more. But of course it has all of the opportunities that Man United wants. But go back to the 70s. Man United took Frank Stapleton from Arsenal. They've always had a draw, even when they were the 70s incarnation of themselves that won the FA Cup a couple of times, and were this club that had been relegated 4 or 5 years before they re-emerged back in English elite football as a moderate force, until Ferguson arrives in 86 and takes 4 years to get himself into a situation where he wins anything. And Crystal Palace helped him with that. But
can they still, to this day, and again, I'm fully with both of you, they are, with Real Madrid, the biggest club in world football. That's not going to die because they haven't won some trophies in recent years, the big ones. But can they still attract the elite players? Can they still get the elite players?
Well, it depends whether players this is my view, it depends whether players know the history of football clubs. You know, you're talking about young people coming in now who might not even know the history of the football club that they are involved with, you know. And I'm not saying they have to read every single book about it, but you have to have some sort of a feel. Manchester United still command that feel. I will dispute that with anybody. They still command that feel. It's Manchester United. They're massive. And if I was a player now, somebody give me this opportunity and said, "Oh, listen, Manchester United will be 3 years before they're in the Champions League again." It wouldn't matter one hoot.
Depends who else is in.
That's
depends
it.
who else is in at the same time. And the big thing I've always made a point of, and I'm in the same camp as him, which is Man United is this iconic football club. But generationally, what's happening, if you stop winning things, the next generation of football fans don't have the same relationship with the idea of Man United that once was before. I've always said, you know, Man City are a Red Bull, Man United a Ferrari. But generationally now, if you have another 10 years of Man United not winning things and Man City or XYZ football club dominating English football, the next raft of people that perceive Man United as a big football club will look at it very differently, because it will have been 20 odd years. And you know, of course, you'll never lose Best. You'll never lose the trinity of Best, Charlton and Law. You'll never lose that icon of. You'll never forget 1958. You'll never forget the dominance of the Premier League during the 90s and early 2000s. But there's new guys in town that if you're pitched against them, if you've got an opportunity to sign for Man United or Newcastle, at this stage in Newcastle's development, you're still going to possibly choose Man United. This kid's just proven it. But if you get Man United and Man City, a whole different set of dynamics. And the only reason people like Alexis Sanchez went to Man United rather than Man City is because they got offered more dough. And that told me everything about Man United. The players' perception was, this is now a cash trap. I go to Man United not necessarily to win things. I go to Man United because I get paid more money.
Yes, I do take that point. In terms of generations, and the longer Manchester United go without being the big club that they should be, I do take Simon's point in that viewpoint. But again, it's getting back to players. Players should know a bit of history. They should have. I say you don't have to be reading the book about when Sheffield Wednesday were born in 1865.
Some of these players don't. But they don't. They don't know. I don't think they'll care.
No, they don't. No,
but they don't know. I remember years ago, so it was an off couple. I mean, Bill Wyman. Remember Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones? You probably don't. Bill Wyman comes down to Palace and watches Palace. He's a big Palace fan. Comes to watch them at the training ground in Spain. We're doing a pre-season tour. Clinton Morrison said, "Who's he?" I said, "He's Bill Wyman, you know, from the Rolling Stones." Who's the Rolling Stones? Get out of my sight, Clinton. Get out of my sight. Clinton Morrison.
What are you doing?
I might not know him, but I know who the Rolling Stones are. All right, another person that's had a few things to say on the tour is Manchester United defender Luke Shaw, who has backed their head coach Ruben Amorim's hardline approach to improving the toxic and unhealthy culture at the club. This is what Luke Shaw had to say. He's extremely tough on the group. He leaves no stone unturned, and I think there are no stragglers in this group anymore. I think everyone has to put the team first. He's made that very clear. Luke Shaw actually doesn't even play that much football for Manchester United at the moment, does he? When fit, fantastic. But even Ruben must be looking at him thinking, as good as you are, and these words are nice, you don't play enough. You're never fit.
Yeah, but sometimes when a manager steps into a football club, players want to ingratiate themselves with him, you know, and they say some really nice things. It's the usual thing. Or training has improved immensely after a day and a half or something. Oh, it's really far better. He's got great ideas. He's got all of these things here, and of course that lasts.
And Rashford was the poster boy for that with Ruben Amorim, and then 5 minutes later he wants to leave.
Absolutely, and it's exactly that there. And then 3 weeks later, that player's not playing, and he's a totally different attitude to everything. At the end of it all, players, there shouldn't be a toxic atmosphere, and that's created by players at the end of the. So it shouldn't be. At Manchester United, you should be fighting for a place in the side, and if there has been, I think if there has been a toxic atmosphere, is that not a discredit to the players in many aspects?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's the leader in that United dressing room? Who gets rid of that toxic atmosphere? It's not Bruno, is it?
Well, if you are the captain of the side, you should have a bigger say than some of the other players. I have no idea. At the end of it.
I guess that goes back to United not being the team that you, again... Oh, there's been a goal in the game between Yokohama Marinos and Liverpool. Surely, give me the good news on this one.
Yokohama 1, Liverpool 0. The team bottom of the J-League after 24 games are ahead 10 minutes into the second half. Decent ball played in left-hand side of the penalty area for Yamanaka to put it across the goalkeeper first time and into the back of the net. I've said that Liverpool have looked exposed at the back time and time again. Well, now they've been made to pay for it. It's Yokohama 1, Liverpool 0.
Oh, that's it. Liverpool in bag in trouble. Not going to win.
It must mean something. It must mean something. You put your best 11 out.
No,
you put your best 11 out, your strongest 11. No,
no. It's just they may need another centre back. That's true.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, it's the pre-season results. You're a manager. You've just won the league, and you're sitting there again. It's getting back to my view about enjoying pre-season matches because there's no real pressure. As long as you know what the players can do, he knows what his players can do. Who will remember the pre-season match there?
No one. I don't remember the pre-season matches last season. They went on to win the league.
Exactly.
Obviously, all the priority, everything seems to be Liverpool, Isak. Should Slot not be prioritising a defender? I'm
quite sure he'll be looking at that.
Yeah, so more targets coming in. All right, you're listening to Oladipo, Jordan and O'Neill on talkSPORT with Selco Builders. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Massive game for Rangers this evening. They go to Panathinaikos 2-0 up in their Champions League qualification. Obviously, Russell Martin, the new manager of Rangers, big for him as well. Imagine, Southampton to Champions League football, Rangers.
This is a great opportunity for Russell.
Enormous.
A great opportunity. I mean, he said at the beginning of prior to the first game, he said this doesn't define his season. No, it doesn't, because we know what defines his season is beating Celtic to some extent and finishing above them in the Scottish Premier League in the eyes of the fans. Gives him a bloody good head start if he beats Panathinaikos and gets himself into that situation. What a head start he gets then.
What a head start indeed. Let's hear it from the manager. This is what Russell Martin had to say in the lead up to this massive game.
For me, it's the same situation we found ourselves in before the first game. Is a tough game against a good opponent that we have to be really ready for. And I think we'll be better than we were last week. We have to be. And it's down to these guys when they step out over the white line to make sure we stick to the work and the detail and really believe in what we're doing.
We always say that 2-0 is a tough sort of scoreline in a football match, especially at half-time, 2-0, right? What do you do as a manager? Do you stick or you twist? Do you go to Panathinaikos and completely change your methodology, or do you decide to go for it?
Well, I think you'll take a few things into consideration. You'll obviously take the fact that you're playing away from home. You'll take the fact that it's a Greek team I know the crowd will be right behind them as well too. So from that viewpoint, so you'll make a couple of adjustments, but you'll try. It's a great result they got, absolutely fantastic result. 2-0 if you had given that, if you'd asked him beforehand, he'll take the 2-0. Panathinaikos had a man sent off in the game. The momentum changes from that viewpoint. Although I think Rangers were leading 1-0 at the time anyway. However, it's a big game because first of all, there's money attached to this year if you're getting through to it. And secondly, in terms of kudos and that there, it would be great for a new manager stepping in there and find themselves being able to get into the Champions League. Now, they'll have another leg. Sorry, not just if they get through here, they'll still have to play some more matches and that there. But it would be big. It would be big shift for Rangers if they could make it into the Champions League.
Ultimately, look, I mean, the biggest thing he needs to do, and I guess this, in taking the job, is closing that gap to Celtic. 17 points last season. So you almost expect the Scottish League to be won by whoever wins the game between Celtic and Rangers, and that should be the story. But they were so far behind Rangers last season. That's the job he's got to close that gap on Celtic.
I have discussed this, and we've discussed it with Souness, and we agreed on the principle of how far Celtic are away from Rangers. And up until last season, Rangers hadn't really laid a glove on Celtic for a significant period of time. Ironically, now Rangers are laying a glove on Celtic and falling short in other games, which surprises me. And that might go to the culture of the club. It might go to some of the shortcomings of Philippe Clement. It might go to a whole raft of things. I'm pleased, with all due respect, and I mean this as best I can possibly phrase it, I'm pleased they didn't rely upon Barry Ferguson. I don't think that was a grown-up thought process to put him in as manager of Rangers to really bridge the gap between them and Celtic. You've got a new set of ownership. Making noise about spending 20 million quid is not going to make any difference. But I think if they've got the 49ers in there who are a proper outfit, they'll change the culture. I think the culture was a little bit tired and a little bit unimaginative in their thinking. Now, Russell Martin, in some people's minds, might be someone that they continue to think is unimaginative. I think he's a good, decent coach. I think he was brilliant getting Southampton out of the division in the Championship. I think he was the reason they got out, the real reason. He dragged them up by their bootstraps, and no one picked them for that playoff final. One of my rare voyages into getting a tip right, I picked Southampton to win the playoffs because of Russell Martin. I was disappointed with him in the Premier League because I thought he was ideologically naive and didn't want to change. But I think he will have learnt, and I think he will do okay at Rangers. The big question is, can they spend money? Can they change the direction? And how do they bridge the gap between not being able to laying gloves on Celtic and then not get beat by XYZ club in the Premier League like St Mirren?
This is exactly the point. Any given day, we said this to Graham Souness, Simon and I agreed with this. Any given day, Rangers can match Celtic. On a day they can match Celtic. Can they have the consistency to go to other teams and win away from home? Winning away from home, or actually even winning at home matches they're expected to do, which they have not done. They couldn't follow up. This might be a change now, an attitude change in culture, as you talk about, changing a lot of things. Rangers have not been used to being dominated for so long by Celtic, and it's over the course of a season. You do make the point about usually the matches are decided by these four particular games. That's not actually strictly true. I remember once saying, although I in my early days, in an interview I did at Celtic, I said, if we lost all four matches to Rangers and won the league, I'd be happy. I'm afraid I got a lot of calls from Celtic fans. We don't want to hear that. Don't want to hear that at all. We need to be dominating the Rangers as well too. So I learned a lesson pretty quickly. But overall, the main point is this year, have Rangers got the consistency? That's a great result in Europe. Their European exploits last season were terrific.
Very good in
it's
the Europa
not
League.
been able to do it domestically.
Yeah. All right, there's been another goal in the game between Yokohama Marinos and Liverpool. Surely not 2-0, the Moose.
No, it's 1-1. It's Yokohama 1, Liverpool 1, and what a goal this was by Liverpool. Ball one midway inside their own half by Jones. He drove towards the edge of the penalty area, played in Salah right-hand side. Salah then laid it back towards Jones, who's done it for Florian Wirtz, 12 yards out, to drive the ball home. That was his last touch. He's been replaced. Harvey Elliott is on, and so too centre-half. Off have gone Konate and Van Dijk. So the centre-half partnership now is Endo, who was greeted magnificently by the Japanese fans, and Tsimikas. But Liverpool back in it now with 25 minutes to go. It's Yokohama 1, Liverpool 1.
By the way, again, I know it doesn't mean anything, but Newcastle are currently losing to a K-League All-Stars in a pre-season game as well. Just saying. All right, Leicester have signed Asmir Begovic. This is Leicester's first signing of the season, which must be worrying for Leicester City fans. Asmir Begovic, solid, right? I think we all know as a pro, he's been around, it feels like for ages, by the way, Asmir Begovic, but he signed on a 1-year deal after leaving Everton. He becomes, as I say, Leicester's first signing of the summer, and it's just 12 days to go before the Championship opener against Sheffield Wednesday, who have their own problems. I think we've been speaking about it at length on this show for the last few days. What's going on with Leicester? Not spending any money at all. I mean, they're going to have to spend something if they want to bounce back up, no?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of questions about what's going on with Leicester, from why it took so long to get rid of Ruud van Nistelrooy to what next for them and where they're going and how many PSR problems they're going to have and how hard they're going to be smacked as a result of breaches. So there's a whole raft of challenges that Leicester have to overcome, which is a sad reflection of a football club that won the Premier League 9 years ago. I don't know what it tells you. I think some of the decisions, I found the appointment of Ruud van Nistelrooy a very strange one, because, with due respect, they appointed Ruud on the basis of the 4 games that he managed in the Premier League, 2 of them against them. And they were crap, so I didn't think that was much of a benchmark to employ him. And of course, he got the Man United dressing room happy for 5 minutes because he was there for 5 minutes. And they've got to start making some better decisions than the ones they're making. They managed to tap dance their way around all kinds of PSL governance, meant to find themselves in a Bermuda Triangle where they weren't governed by the Premier League or the Champions League in the last Championship in the last 2 seasons. And now those chickens have come home to roost. So they've got to get themselves a bit structurally better.
Yeah, Cifuentes has come in as the new boy, the new man in charge. Was at QPR. I don't know if you know too much about him, Martin, but again, another young Spanish manager. I guess they'll be hoping that there is almost an Andoni Iraola about him.
Wow.
It's a big shout, isn't it? Big shout.
That is a big shout. That's a big shout. I don't know enough about him, and so there's no point in commenting. You'd have thought... I think there was a couple of people, Sean Dyche and a few other managers were in the reckoning, and they chose not to. I suppose if I had been on the board at Leicester at the time, you'd think that Sean might, over a 46-game season, be able to have done something with it. I don't know. Maybe he didn't fancy it at all. Maybe they never offered it him. I don't know, but you would have thought that was the case. It's a big challenge for the manager stepping in there.
There's a mixed reaction to him, I think. I mean, obviously there's a lot of dissent towards him about the way he departed Queen's Park Rangers.
Yeah, I think that's...
And I think there's an element of the QPR fans are not overly impressed with him.
I think that's you being kind.
I think, he went up like a Roman candle, I think.
yeah. I think there's been another goal, by the way, again in the game between Yokohama's and Liverpool. I'm smiling, so you probably know which way it's gone.
Yokohama 1, Liverpool 2. They turned it round. Lovely ball in 67 minutes by Frimpong, right-hand side for Naomi to stretch 3 yards out the far post and stick it in the back of there. Yokohama 1, Liverpool 2.
Martin, thank you very much. Simon, as always, thank you very much. Are you with us tomorrow, Martin?
No, I'm...
You're going to be listening though, aren't you?
I'm actually... I have
give us notes.
Sorry, I have another job to go to. I enjoyed listening to you yesterday because I had some time.
There you go.
But sorry, I can't tomorrow unless... If you say something really terrific, I will get it. I'll get it back.
We'll send you a transcript.
Thank you very much.
We'll do that.
Brilliant.
Up next, Paul Hawksby and Perry Groves.